There's a lot to this stuff.
There is.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm Ashley.
Hi, I'm Wallace.
Nice to meet you.
We met you at the.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
You were the stranger that turned to us.
Yes, I'm a stranger.
Oh, yeah, I was back in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a packet. Oh, right there. And you can sit on yours.
Oh, yeah, I got some people popped on. Hey, some of them we are. Some of them. I better see Paul.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Michelle,
And Danny's wife.
Good luck with your class. You're not going. She's like, wow.
Thank you, honey.
Appreciate that, honey. I can hear you talk all that.
Oh, yeah.
That's fair.
You're like,
I did.
Ronnie, why don't you just stop talking for a little while? It's not getting better. You just
Yeah.
stop for.
And coming from her, she's the talker.
All right. Somebody didn't get the last word.
That means. Oh, I didn't get that. That must be.
Oh, you didn't get the whole
I didn't
thing?
get the whole.
Becky.
Maybe I didn't get that. I definitely did.
This is,
Oh, I got it.
you got that?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't get the last.
Good turnout. Okay. A bunch of people popping up on Zoom. That's good.
Cool.
I think every bit of this is gonna go over my head, but I'm excited to
think
hear it.
Gotta start somewhere.
I think you'll be surprised at how straightforward it is. But better have this be the first time you see this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then in front of a client.
Well, that was one of the reasons I like wanted to do this, because I always remember this story of a real estate agent. She was a very successful agent, property environment, and home construction environment. We're sitting around talking about the, plat of the community, the half a lot. And there was a detention pond on the property. And in front of her buyer, who was an engineer, after got everything done, we got a mistake on here. And she said, this is what it happened. She said, it said detention pond right here. There's nothing, that's like in school where you put detention. I know they missed that. It's supposed to say detention pond. And she said in front of her client, who's an engineer. And he called me a couple of days later and said, I think I'm going to need you to walk me through this process. And I felt so bad for her.
Oh.
It's actually a thing. And, I
There
just
you
gotta,
should be.
yeah, and I just gotta let it go. But she was very successful.
I know. I'm gonna be closer.
Just to this mic, because I've got a lot of feedback on the Zoom side of things. I can hear him just fine, but I'm having,
That's because he talks like that.
well, that's as far as it'll go. Yes,
You already said that. Right.
yes,
That's a safety mic.
yes, you can scoot it on up and but this is as far as it goes. That's the problem. Yes.
Problem solving.
Of course, all this will be solved in new space.
And then, yeah, if when folks come in, if we can just have them sit around y'all so that we can make it like a round table, that'd be great. So we can hear their questions and stuff. I think we're good. Can y'all hear better now? Say something, Josh.
How's the volume? Good morning, good morning.
How's the volume? Tell me online. What do you see? Mike, you got it?
Testing.
Okay, good. All right.
Sweet, good turnout.
Okay, there you go. So you talk to the folks in here and then we'll monitor the
Okay.
questions and I'll interrupt as needed.
We have everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome. My name is Steve Jacobs and my partner in crime here is Josh LaWarre. Yes, I got that name correct. Took me about a year to get that. Josh and I are the principals for Mattress Real Estate Services, a group here in the office. And we specialize in a lot of new home construction. That's a large part of our business. And I would say over the years, Josh and I have probably been involved in hundreds of new home construction or maybe thousands. But at least hundreds.
At least not.
At least hundreds. So we just want to kind of share some of the information, some of the basics for development, things we run into as a buyer's agent, possibly more in this course of how you would go in to work with a builder's agent and the things you're gonna run into, the terms you're gonna hear, so that you got a little more tools and education, be involved in those conversations and talk the talk and walk the walk, as I like to say in these things. Josh is going to be handling the first part. It's going to be on the plat of the community and then a plot plan for an actual home on a plot in a community. And we'll go over a lot of terms. If you guys have any questions, just jump in for questions, and then kind of at the end of each section, we're also going to take questions on that section, and then kind of questions at the end if we need to as well. Workshop, so you guys just jump in and ask us questions, and be glad to give as much information as we can. And so now I'll turn it over to Josh. And guys, everybody, this is the form we should be looking at. So this one here, this will be your guideline, and then the document that says site plan at the top will be your first one that you want to have.
Yep. So the one that's got the circle on the front of it looks like that. Okay. Like Steve said, there are a lot of terms that are going to get thrown out here. So you'll notice at the top of the what do you call it, cheat sheet that we've got here that has the title of the course, we're defining out what each of the different things are. We're going to cover 4 basic areas. So as he said, I'm going to do the plat map first, then the plot plan. He's going to handle the floor plans and cabinet plans. So it's really from the 10,000 foot view. And you'll notice it is literally from the 10,000 foot view, because first thing you see on here is the circle where we have number 1 is the location map that's within the immediate geographic region. So if you won't refer to this a ton, but it's a good way to know what you're close to, where the property is located with regard to other pieces that are surrounding it, main roads, things like that. So that's where you're going to find that on the front page of every one of these. And these are generally, just let me say, the format that you see in this document is going to be pretty standard throughout any plat map that you see. You may not get all the pieces. There could be more pages depending on how many geographic features you have in a particular development or community. So just know that you're not going to have to know what, I think we have about 28 pages on this one. We're not going to cover all 28 pages, and you don't necessarily need to know all that, but we're going to cover the highlights because we don't want the first time that you encounter these things to be in front of a new home sales agent or with your client or things like that, so that you can talk the talk. So again, we've got the location map shown there within the larger geographic region. And then there's a lot of useful information in here. So a lot of questions you may have about a new neighborhood, that your clients may have about new neighborhoods, you can find quite a bit of the basic answers for things like who runs the electric to the neighborhood, who's the sewer company, who's pulling cable to the neighborhood, things like that. You'll see in number 2, the utility companies who are actually putting the hard infrastructure in. These are the companies that are laying the sewer pipe, putting the water lines in, all of that sort of thing, gas lines, and it gives you contact information for each of those. It's super useful because, especially in a new development, when you don't know how to get your clients to get their utilities turned on, things like that, or who to call for a problem, that's going to be a good place to refer if you have questions like that. You've got basic site data out to the right on number 3. So this is going to tell you the plat book and page that this plat map is going to be in, the kind of zoning that you have, the amount of green space acreage that you have versus the number of lots that you have. So just some general overview site data that's also going to be useful for you, just to answer some basic questions. And then you've got the property owner, so you can find out. Sometimes you'll hear developer and builder used interchangeably, but they are not interchangeable terms technically. So a developer is the person who creates the landscape for the neighborhood, puts the roads in, grades the lots for initial, manages the water, pushes the dirt around to create the actual neighborhood. Whereas a builder is the person who's actually constructing the home inside that development. So know that those two things are different, because you'll hear people say, have you talked to a developer about building a house? And those are not the same thing. So developers handle the land, builders handle the house. But you're going to be able to see on here who the developer is. And in this case, it's Echo Development. And so if you have larger questions, a lot of times developers will run the homeowners association to a point until you get enough buyers in a neighborhood where it turns over to individuals in the community who can be on the HOA and things like that. So that's going to be good information to know as well. And then you'll notice down in the bottom right-hand corner, and this is going to be on most of the pages. It's some of the specific data pages like that show curb and gutter. You may not have this, but you're going to have the engineer's seal. There's a difference between having a plat map that has been certified by an engineer. It may not yet be accepted by the municipality they're building in. So just because you see the engineer's seal doesn't mean that it's an approved plat. So like brand new neighborhoods, it needs to have, for instance, I live in Nolensville. We've got lots of engineered plat maps that come through. Not all of them get approved by the town of Nolensville, for instance, and it's the same way any municipality. So you want to make sure that you're looking at, for the most accurate data, you want an approved plat, which means it's gone through all of the readings for the community and they've said, this is good to go and you may start construction on this.
Will there be another stamp on there?
It'll say, generally it will say approved plan
Right.
in the
their
site data.
signature would be right here.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep, you're going to get the signature of whoever the approval authority is.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
term you'll hear is recorded.
That's
Is-
right.
Is the
Recorded
plat
plat.
recorded? When the plat's recorded, then a builder can. Permits.
And you'll have in new neighborhoods and new phases, you'll have occasionally builders will start selling before they have the recorded plat, and you'll see that they'll have a provision in their purchase agreement that will say subject to recorded plat. So just be aware.
Can't give out like the address yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's
They
no-
don't know
There's
it.
no parcel.
Yeah.
Does anybody know who's responsible for setting the addresses?
Post office.
Fire department,
911. Yeah. 911.
which can be tricky on corner lots because you never know which ones they're going to choose. But just so you know, if it comes down to it and you need to have the authority tell you that's the one, that's where you go.
And Josh, is that in every county that the fire department sets that, or is that only in Davidson County? Because we have some folks on from Williamson County and Rutherford County.
It's true in Williamson County. It's true in every place that I've worked so far.
me too.
And so I couldn't swear to it. I haven't worked and done new construction in every county around us. So it's possible, you know, if you have a volunteer fire department, it's possible they don't set the addresses, but that's been the norm every time I've had a community. So
Yeah. Those numbers are what's registered into the 911 system. And so because of, health and stuff like that and emergencies, they are the top of the food chain with any address, and should be, in my opinion.
Great, thank you.
good question. Okay. Moving on to the second page, we're going to go to number 6. This is going to be on every page that you have a blown up portion of the lots. You can see that's what we're looking at here. This is a portion of the community. You can see the lots numbered out. You're going to have a north seeking arrow. That's number 6. Now, it seems inconsequential in some ways, but you have a lot of buyers. Correct. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, second page. So right at the top left of the second page. When you have buyers who either have a preference for their home facing a certain direction, or they're concerned about which way the sun is going to hit the home in the afternoon, things like that. This is a great way to be able to look at this shorthand and go, okay, well, we know north is up here, so they're going to get lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are going to get afternoon shade. And on the other side, you're likely going to get afternoon sun. So just a good reference point when people are wondering about that sort of thing. Moving down to item 7, which is right in the center of the page, you're going to also see what is considered to be a typical lot layout for the neighborhood. And usually you'll get an interior lot and corner lot as an example, just like this one has. What that's going to show you is not all lots are exactly like these, but this is going to be how they set it up typically. So the majority of them are going to fall into these parameters. You're going to see, and we'll get further down the road on setbacks and things like that when we get to the plot plan section, but you'll see the dotted lines on there show where the building setbacks are, it's called the building envelope, where you're allowed to build the structure of the home and certain things. So that is going to guide you. Like if you were wondering, hey, how much do you have to be off the street on a corner lot? What's the setback there? You can actually look at this kind of thing and say, oh, okay, yeah, you're going to have to be, I can't read it because it's too small, but that's where you'll find that kind of information. And then for the section of lots that are shown on this particular page, number 8 is going to show you what the square foot and acreage of each of those lots is. So that's really useful. So you're all lots on here. So all what do we have? 5 through 15, it looks 17. Those are going to be pictured down here in this lot area table. And so you can, you know, you can look at 15 and go, well, that looks quite a bit bigger. I wonder how big that is, and know what the acreage is below. So yes.
Okay, I'm kind of lost.
Mhm.
Lot table.
Yeah. So if you look,
Oh, that real small thing.
yeah, we have it in red, so it's a little easier to spot. So that's that little
I'm
thing.
not trying to be difficult.
No, not at all. Ask
Come on in.
away.
There's
Ask
all your
away.
documentation right there.
That's it.
And you're going to find those. We didn't circle them on everyone, but you're going to find those pretty much everywhere they have lots pictured out like you see on this page. So there will be several different iterations of these shown for different reasons, like where drainage is. It may not show the lot table and things like that, but you'll be able to find it on there.
Okay. Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
On the lot envelope, one of the things I've learned in new home construction because this is about sales and forming a relationship with your clients, is one of the most exciting things you can do with a client, whether you're the buyer going out to the lot or you're listing for a builder and you're working with, you know, a client looking to buy from the builder, is I have 4 red cones in my car and I have 100-foot tape. And if you know how to work this, you can literally go to a lot with a customer and you can have them involved in it where they have one end of the 100-foot tape and you have the other end of the 100-foot tape. And you can start at the curb and measure in your easement. That's the beginning of my lot. I can measure back so many feet for this home. And then you can actually create the box that will be their future home with the 4 red cones.
Well, they're gonna love you the rest of your life.
Correct.
It's a
Then
big deal. I'm telling
it's
you.
a big,
It's a big
emotionally,
deal.
it is a big deal because you're literally taking a customer out to a piece of land and saying, one day, maybe we're going to put that house that's flat on a piece of paper on that lot and it's going to look amazing. But it's getting them involved in the deal.
Mhm.
And if they have one end of the tape and you have the other end, and then you mark it off, and then you can literally go to the back right corner and go, okay, guys, look, here's your floor plan. You're going to be standing at your kitchen window having coffee right here, and that's going to be your view. And so it's a simple thing to do, takes 15, 20 minutes, but the emotional attachment to the piece of property and to you is well worth the time. So I would suggest
Great point.
maybe trying to, learn that if you're going to work with a lot of clients in new home construction.
What kind of tape? Is it like,
Just
One of those big
100-foot,
circular ones.
100-foot measuring tape.
Measuring tape.
Yeah, the
So
ones
you-
that you roll out that's 100 feet.
It's kind of like a roll, isn't it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spool.
It's got like a handle and it's a rolled up tape underneath it. And then
Yeah.
they're 100
It's
feet
not a
long
metal tape.
No,
Right.
it's kind of a cloth
and a
material.
reel.
Yeah.
It's got a reel.
Because if I
on it.
know this
And they
plan,
always get
if I know this
snagged.
plan is 60 feet across the front and I know it's 75 feet deep, then I can create that box. I just need to start from the curb, work my way into the front of the building envelope, draw back, draw across, put my 4 cones, and I've formed the home.
And we'll touch on that again when we get to the plot plan section, because that's going to be the most useful for that sort of thing. But you could do it from the plat map as well if you didn't have a plot plan, and not every builder is going to give you that right up front because they may not have it. Steve, that is a fantastic thing to do with buyers and sellers, or buyers on new construction, is to get them out on the lot, because it's really the only thing that's different. The house plan might be the model home plan, but the piece of land is truly, it's a unique piece that their house is going to be on. So
I think something else is when you have woods
mhm.
and you're looking at 20 acres, but they're gonna take 5 acres of it, do the same thing. And then they can see where their 5 acres is.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm fighting that right now.
Yeah.
That idea of the red cones is gold.
Yeah, I mean, think how hard it is to envision something. I mean, if you've done a lot of work in this space, or you know what a home could be when you see it, that is needs to be remodeled or something. As an experienced realtor, you can envision what that looks like. But to be able to paint that picture for your client it's huge. It's a big deal.
It's a simple task. It's not hard to do, but it shows such knowledge from you to your client that when they're like, what are you doing? And when you physically do it and go, okay, you're standing in your living room, you've got them. They know that you know what you're doing, and you bring, substance to the relationship now.
Exactly. Good. Okay, just quickly, number 9 on there, I just wanted to point out again, you're going to find the engineer's stamp on each page of these. So just these get when you have a community and you're a new home sales agent, which is what Steve and I both have done on site for a number of years, you get one of these from your builder, you get a plat map, and sometimes the pages get lost or turned around or something like that. So just make sure that you're looking at, that they stay consistent. You've got an engineer's stamp on each page. And if it's the recorded plat, that you're looking at the actual, each pages of the recorded plat. So something to note there. All right.
Do they usually, once you start doing the contract, do you usually sign this or have a form or something or own this actual document?
Typically, you wouldn't sign the plat. You could theoretically, if you could circle the lot that they're getting and sign on that, and that would probably suffice for most builders. But usually, they're going to give you something like that. You're going to get a plot plan that your customers are going to be asked to sign, because that's
specific lot.
Right. It's more specific that way. So there's no confusion at the end when they go, well, that's not the lot we chose. Okay, moved on to the next page. Any other questions before we skip ahead on that?
Yeah. Any questions out there, Tabby?
I don't think I see any. I've answered most of them and given them an example of a 100-foot tape measure. So
Okay.
Full service. Thank you.
Hey, when you produce at a high level. All right. Any other questions, guys, on what they've covered so far online? Nope. Move along.
Comes back. If it comes up later, don't hesitate to ask. All right.
One
Yes.
thing you didn't mention, this legend it's really, or maybe you did and I missed it, this legend on the left corner
Which
shows a water line, sewer line.
Right below number
which page are
6.
you on?
Right below number 6, Josh.
Right below number 6. We do get to the legend actually at some point on here. I forget which number we have it on, but
I'm sorry.
no, that's all right. We can talk about it right now and then we'll touch on it again. So yeah, the legend is going to show you, obviously it's like a map. So you're going to see what all the different symbols that you're going to encounter on this are going to be contained in that legend, and it's going to tell you what's what. So you'll be able to see what counts as the sidewalk, what's a setback line, what's a hard lot line, where the curb is, and you're going to get even more detailed information as you get farther into the plat map about each of those things too. Much more detailed than you'll ever care to be, but you'll still see those. So we'll pass by a couple of those pages as we go along. Anything else before we move? All right, let's move to the next one then. All right, so the flood study note down here at the bottom, obviously you can imagine why that's an important thing to look at. The way developments get done, just like with home building, water is the enemy and you have to figure out what to do with it. And when they start pushing dirt around all over these sites, engineers have to account for where the water flows, because now it's not a natural landscape. So if it used to flow into a creek and you're pushing dirt around, you might be diverting that somewhere else. And what you don't want to do is have those sitting against a home or causing problems with moisture under a home or something like that. So you'll see none of this is in a floodplain area, but it will note if there is any portion of the community that is in a flood area, it's going to note it in the flood study note. So it's a good thing to make a note of. And then the scale. One thing, this might seem a little obvious. If you want to, you can get an engineer's ruler for these things. It's one of those triangular, looks like the Mitsubishi emblem when you look at the end of it. But you can get one of those and actually measure things out on here, on these maps. What you want to do is you want to definitely make sure that the scale wasn't messed up during copy or printing or something like that. So you're going to find it on here. You can use that. The likelihood that you will is pretty small, but just know they do when they get copied and reproduced, the scale gets thrown off frequently. So that can mess up your pertinent information, especially if you're trying to measure something that the buyer really wants to know. Okay. On the next page, you're going to see an easement for community access. Most of the communities that you're going to find have entrances for the public to come in, and then they'll have a separate entrance for construction traffic for obvious reasons. The traffic itself, but also you got heavy vehicles coming in and they're going to have mud on their tires. Some of them are track vehicles and they just want them to come into a different area. So if, for instance, you had a buyer who wanted lot number 6 and it's early in the community's build out, they got to understand that they're right next to that access point. So that's a good thing to point out to them. It's like, you're going to have to live with construction traffic coming through here until they either open another construction entrance for a new phase, or the community is complete. So just good to make note of those things as you go along.
And Josh, that's called an ingress egress, correct? For those
That's
who
right.
might not
Yep.
know the legal terminology.
Correct.
It might
Yes.
not say construction easement. It may just say that what you've got on the plat that says ingress egress.
That's right.
Right.
Good point. And you were going to say?
Sometimes you'll have stuff like that on a plat too, where if there's a large section of common ground cut, there'll be easements across properties to make sure that the homeowner association later has access to that property to cut it. And so sometimes you'll see something just as simple as that. That just, there's going to be mowers going across there, and that's how we need to access that property. We have the right to access that property to maintain it.
Right. Okay. And there's also a stormwater note for this page. This is going to tell you whether it's in a floodplain, whether there are any areas that are subject to ponding for stormwater. So just that's so important to know what it looks like for your clients to know, is there any portion of some lots will have the back portion that may flood. If you've got a detention or retention area in the back, it's possible you might have some unbuildable portion of the lot. There's a community out in off South Carruthers called Delta Springs. I don't know if any of you know it, but in Delta Springs, you got the Little Harpeth is right behind there, and you've got 2-acre lots that back up, and the back portion of those are all they're all floodplain in the back, but the buildable part of it is completely dry. It's above the floodplain area. So good to watch out for things like that.
For insurance for something like that, do you pay for flood insurance for the whole lot though? Right? Do you know?
Well,
The flood insurance only comes in when it's in the building envelope where the structure is going to end up.
the house has to be in jeopardy.
My question.
So,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And then, simple thing, but what was the name of that neighborhood?
Delta Springs.
Has the word springs in the neighborhood. This is not.
Like they knew. It's like they knew.
This is not a complicated business, guys. If your customer wants a level lot and the name of the neighborhood is something Ridge, probably doesn't have level lots. Just saying.
Probably. That's what we call an indicator. Yeah. Okay. Moving to the next. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Someone had sent it in. One, just talking about stormwater, the definition of stormwater.
Well, like on a day like today, this is a perfect day to talk about stormwater. So like I said, the development has to be engineered so that it sheds water to certain places to keep it away from homes and to keep it from creating unhealthy or unsafe conditions inside the neighborhood. So when they put these roads in and everything, they're changing the elevations of all these different pieces of land. So they have to make sure that it drains properly. So stormwater is what happens when you get a big rain, or any rain for that matter, enough to make water shed to different parts of the neighborhood. So this is how they manage it, is the stormwater. Like flowing down you got catch basins inside the gutters on the sides of the road. Those are those metal grates. They've got detention areas at the lowest point of the neighborhood, which we'll see in some of these depictions on this plat map, where the water will then gather and then dissipate. So that's a detention area. It detains the water, does not retain the water, and it lets it flow into the soil. So
Thank
And a
you.
lot of this is based off of speed of water. If you have a field and with the same slope, water will go much slower on a field than if you take that same field and don't change the topography, but you put streets in it. Water will obviously flow much faster on asphalt. So that's why they have to go in and do stormwater reports after the community is done, to see the speed of the water, where it's going to go, and how we can keep it away from any other person's property and get it to the stormwater system.
Right, because
Yeah,
the
so-
property can't flow into someone else's adjoining property, right? Like
Basically, that is
construction can't affect my it shouldn't affect my property, right?
that is the basic, rule of all easements, all drainage, all stormwater, is to not negatively impact anybody else's property.
generally, you can't just be at the end of the line, because you will have easements that
Mhm.
manage stormwater that go across all lots. Bent Creek, if you go up and down Fishing
yeah.
Creek, there's a swale that runs behind all the lots. The one at the bottom is the one they're trying to keep the water from pooling up in. So you may have stormwater management features on your lot, but they are designed to put it somewhere else. Yes.
Is that a civil engineer that does that analysis after?
Mhm. Yes. Yep. That's exactly who it is.
And they do not deviate either. A stormwater engineer does not deviate.
No. No, you're not getting any slack from that. So this is a good place to look. I'm gonna show you, you're gonna see all the features of this neighborhood will be done in detail throughout a plat map. So this is something where you're looking, if you've got somebody who's buying back here and they want to know, what are those dark black lines that are inside the four-way stop there? I don't understand. You can see down here in the inset, they have a speed management strategy they're employing with, looks like speed bumps, so that you hit that and you have to slow down, or you know when to stop so
Right.
that you don't actually roll through. So just little things like that that are going to provide more explanation, easier way to visualize or see what the plan is, the way it's going to lay out.
It's on the next page, Tabby.
Yes,
Yeah,
on
yeah, bottom of that page.
Thank you.
There you go, right there.
Is that C12?
it's this one right here.
C12.
C12.
Okay, thank you.
And what does C stand for, Josh?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably detail sheet C 4.0. Actually, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Don't know. Could be. It might refer to a different section of the plat.
I'm guessing civil,
Well, it could be.
because you see A, architectural.
But if you we'll skip ahead here real quick. If you go let's see how many pages in. You go into a few pages in, it won't be on the drainage plan, but let's look at this. This is the kind of thing that we're not going to really go in detail on something like this. This is specific, very in-depth designs for little pieces of the neighborhood, like how deep the curb is, and what's the substrate underneath the soil, and how compact is it, and things like that. So that C may be referring to something on one of these pages. If you get,
It does. If you guys all look at the bottom right corner of every one of these pages, you'll see C. I'm on page C12. So it's just referring you to another page in the packet.
oh, and I know, so they'll have different.
A packet right over here for you, Condo.
Hey,
Yeah, packet right over there for you.
all right, we're gonna skip ahead on a few pages here. I think I skipped ahead 2 pages up to the grading and drainage plan, which is bottom right corner, C22. This is where you can verify whether Ridge was appropriate in the name of the neighborhood or not. Okay, this is one of those things. So grading, you're going to see these dotted lines that are all over this that look really confusing. Those are called contour lines, and they actually map the slope and different little features in great detail of each of these lots. And what I pointed to with those 2 arrows, you can see the numbers in there. That's the above sea level elevation. That's so 715 feet on the top one there, 720 on the bottom. And the reason I point that out is you can know, if you wanted to take your scale and measure this, you could know how steep that is, because you count those contour lines in between 15 and 20, there are 5 of them. So that's every foot, there's one of those. So when you see them very tight together, like you do on the lot next to that, where they get really tight together, that's steep.
That's topo.
5-foot drop.
Well, it doesn't matter, whatever the,
5-foot slope.
correct, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so the tighter the lines are together, the more slope there is. That's an easy way to do it. So you'll see a lot of them that have very tight lines in our market. I mean, it's very common.
Yeah.
So And obviously, conversely, the farther apart they are, the more level. I mean, we
Right.
just looked at a piece in like Murfreesboro's got a lot of level lots versus a place like closer into town or Nolensville or Williamson County where you've got a lot of hilly, a lot of topography to deal with.
Now let's talk about how that works in your everyday application with a buyer. Topo lines are very important. You could look at a plat map of a community and a lot of agents and buyers will gravitate towards the largest lot. I want that one. It is the largest lot. Makes sense when it's flat. But always look at your topography lines, because just because a lot is large on a piece of paper does not mean it's usable or fits your client's needs. So, and what you'll want to do, and a new home agent can help you with this, is if the lines gravitate from the front to the back, that means that that's a basement lot. It's higher at the front than it is at the back, which is going to end up creating probably a walkout basement lot. If the lot slopes in the other direction, now it's going to be integral. Now, one of the things, if the back of the lot is higher than the front of the lot, we all know the home has to be flat. So what does that do to the steps in the front of a home when the lot slopes up? Creates numerous steps. So if you have a client you're working with that steps, zero entry is very important to me because my grandmother comes over a lot and guys, I can't have steps, then you need to automatically narrowcast your buyer away from lots that have topo lines on them, because they are going to have steps. It is the nature of the beast of that piece of land. So topo lines are very important when you're working with a buyer and what their needs are. Just don't go by size and location.
Mm-hmm.
Topo is very, very important.
Great point. Great point. And you can see, we'll move on to the next point here, because the topo lines show the slope of this and show actually down here where I've got number 16 circled. That is a detention area. That's a water management area that is actually on the property that those homeowners, whoever buys lot 14 and whoever buys lot 15, have that as part of their lot. However, it's maintained. They're not allowed to plant anything in there. They're not allowed to go in there and push dirt around or do anything to otherwise alter the way the water flows into that space. So that's an important thing to note. It can scare a lot of people.
Can you back up there? You just
Sure.
lost me right there.
Okay, so the portion that I've got circled down there,
Yeah,
okay,
on the right.
that is a detention area. That's where the water that flows from these lots slope from the front down to the back.
15 and 14.
Correct. So it's straddling both of those sites. So lot 14 is going to have that partially on their property that they can't do you can't do anything with that in terms of improvements or play equipment. It would be obvious when you look at it in person. It would be obvious that you wouldn't be able to. But if you see that on a plat, just know, hey, look, if you were planning to use the entire yard for your outdoor living space, that isn't going to happen over here. And same thing on lot 15. And that's going to be maintained by the developer. And you're going to want to make sure that you ask the question, who's responsible for cutting the grass in there?
Right.
It may be the developer, or they may put it on the homeowner. So it's a good question to ask.
Now, in this case, that's uncustomary. In most communities, retention and detention areas will be on common ground.
Correct.
They will not be part of your lot.
Yeah.
And that's why we use this one, because this is a out of the norm that could occur.
Mm-hmm.
And I was involved in the sales of these lots, and it was a large discussion with these customers.
Confusing, I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
But if you just look at the lots, you can see lot 16 and 15. If you take the detention area out, they're approximately the same size. So what the developer did is he tried to give the usable space to be the same, but he had to put the detention area there. But it is actually owned by that person. It is on their lot. So they need to cut around it. They're not responsible for maintaining it and all that, but they have to kind of cut up to the edge of it and all that stuff. And I had to disclose that and explain that to them in that case. It is not on common ground. It's yours.
And Steve, that could affect the price, right? You might think, oh my God, I'm getting a huge lot.
Absolutely.
And
And your
you're like-
customer that just has small children, where there's going to be water behind their home. I mean, so there's,
It's a swimming pool.
it's a swimming pool. There you go. It's a southern swimming pool.
It's yeah.
But yes, Tabby, I did disclose to the customer when I sold it to them that guys, because I always want to be, even though I'm representing the seller in new home construction, I feel I kind of know a little more information than they know. So I feel I need to be even more honest and more disclose more to educate them, because I just feel that's the fair thing to do. So you know, this is an investment. You'll possibly be selling this property later. And so just so you know, the same conversation I'm having with you now, the next buyer is probably going to ask the same question of you. And, you know, make sure you understand that when you purchase this property.
So what
And
is?
what's the difference? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, you're good.
What's the difference between retention and detention? You've mentioned both of those,
Yeah.
Josh.
A retention pond actually keeps the water. It retains it. A detention pond holds it and lets it drain away.
Yeah.
And those are the most common that you'll see. They will be obvious features in the landscape because they're man-made, they're created to manage water, and they'll generally have a big concrete head wall inside them for overflow. So that's typically what you get, but it's just, yeah, one retains water and one holds it temporarily until it drains away.
Yeah. One naturally leaches the water away. The other one, because of the volume of water that will be coming in, has what Josh saying. It's a big concrete thing. It's actually like an overflow in a tub, if you can imagine that. And when the water gets to that level, it'll overflow into that valve, and that goes into the stormwater drain system.
If you want to see a retention pond and you're ever on Concord Road, there's a neighborhood called Lansdowne that's got one right in the front.
Right in front.
So that's a good example of one. Any other questions before we move on?
I just had a question. I have a
Yes.
client that is dealing with something like this now. Let's say that I wanted to put a big flower bed out front on that corner, right there.
Which corner?
Well-
On the corner of the
Yes. So I put,
detention area?
you know, a big concrete or rock flower bed.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be able to do that if it diverted the water away?
You would want to get approval before you did something like that.
Okay.
Definitely. Because
You'll want to allow access for
Yeah.
anyone to come in there and maintain, and you never want to divert water from an established swell
Path of
and
water
path of
management.
water.
So there would be some limitations on landscaping.
definitely. Yeah. And for instance, somebody might not want to see that and have the idea to build a berm and put trees there.
That's kind of what I'm
Mhm.
thinking.
And
about, yeah.
that happens
A lot.
very frequently, and it's, it causes problems. So, and they end up, sometimes they have to get rid of it, or, they just cause
Well,
a problem.
I can answer your question on that from experience. Years ago, I sold a home in the end of a cul-de-sac,
Okay.
and the builder had fully graded and got the lot approved, and we closed on the home. Well, the homeowner was a architect, landscape architect. And he went in, and because it's end of a cul-de-sac, he actually created a bowl in the front of his home. He put a berm down the left side, he put a berm down the right side, and they planted all these pretty trees, and it looked amazing. The very first large rain that came in, the water came down the street at a large velocity. I talked to you before, water moves fast on pavement. It hopped to the curb, and because it could not go to the sides of the home and dissipate between the homes, it went right to the front door and flooded the entire front of the whole home. Whole first floor was totally flooded with water. And the reason I bring this up is
That's
guess
bad.
who the first person they called was? The builder. I have a warranty claim, my home is flooded. Builder goes over, no, sir, I'm sorry, you do not. You have a homeowner's claim because you changed the diversion of the water and you created this situation.
Right.
So get approval, get the right answers before you do that, because it could negatively impact somebody else or yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
It was not pretty. It was kind of funny, but wasn't pretty.
Flooding's not good, right?
It was
It's not good as far
was
as I
not
remember. So yeah,
When you get a builder upset, this, that's bad.
But when you stood and looked at it, you're like, guys,
some of them wake up upset, so it's not your fault.
funnel the water right towards your front door.
Folks, that brings us to the end of the plat map section. If you just leaf through these pages, you will see how detailed these things get. Erosion control, you're going to see one of those things. That is very important for builders. That's why you see the black, looks like canvas kind of fencing. It's low fencing that's all around these lots. It's a big deal to not have mud flow into the streets, and they have to do erosion control all the time. So they got a huge, very detailed plan about how that is supposed to happen. They've got all of these things. Like what's that? Yeah, that's right. That's right. You can see how detailed they get on stuff like that. They've got construction details on these. Again, you don't need to be an expert on this stuff. It's, if you are as twisted as I am, it's fun to go through it anyway. But you don't have to do that. That's the 10,000 foot view of the total community, is the plat map. Now, sometimes referred to a plat.
Say one thing, this.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, one of the reasons we want to do this is we want to let you know that we're here to partner with you. We're here to share this information.
Yeah.
But if any of you run into a situation where I have the farmer, I have the land, he is talking about turning it into a development, I would love to work with this person to represent him. I can probably bring a builder in. Please call us and we'll be glad to share any information we have, spend time
Absolutely.
with you, talk with you about what those next stages are, and hopefully introduce you to some people that can help that person get to that next stage, because I know and I tell you,
That's a great point.
southern corridor of Nashville, that is tremendous right now. There's a lot of people coming in from out of town. They want the dream of the 5 to 10 acres. They are meeting consistently with my builder accounts and they are ready to go. And then until the question comes up, I don't have the 5 to 10 acres. Do you have the 5 to 10 acres? So I know a lot of agents right now are really focusing on that southern quarter of town, finding land, because I know if I can find the land, I have a large sale to go with it. And we'd be glad to answer any questions we could on that.
Absolutely. Great point. So going from the 10,000 foot view, the entire community, down to an individual lot on the plot plan. So let's switch to that. And you'll notice I have two of them here. We'll get to the second one in just a minute. Looks like that. It might be, some of the pages got made into 11 and a half by 17, so it's probably large size.
Now, hopefully by the time you guys are getting to this stage, when a transaction with a customer, that's it. You have worked with a new home agent or a builder. You have picked out a lot. You've picked out a floor plan. And this is where the builder's disclosing to you, here's how your customer's home is going to look on his actual piece of land.
Correct. We got some folks still finding their hard copy here, so I'll hold off before we do that. Any questions before we move forward on this? Does anybody have anything else while we're in a lull?
I learned the hard way. Sun positioning, afternoon sun positioning, especially for morning sun positioning, clients need.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
not one in the
that's
packet. I guess you have to share with condo there. There's not one in the packet.
that's the one I've had come up most often, is a cultural requirement or a religious requirement.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Aunt Nanny's. Anybody know where that is? Bent Creek.
Sounds good.
I had a bunch of sales on Aunt Nanny's, and to a person, they all said, "Is that really the street name?" And yes, the answer is yes. It is Aunt Nanny's place. All right. So again, high up view, individual lot. So this is something like Steve said, you're going to, when you see this, this is when you're down to the nitty gritty on picking a house plan to go on a particular lot, and the builder, before they build it, usually will do a plot plan. The bigger builders almost always will do it and have the client sign that before they'll even move forward. That'll be part of the contract pack. So this is something you're going to see a lot more often than even the plat map. The terms are not interchangeable. Again, like builder developer are not interchangeable. A plat, you'll sometimes say, do you have a plat of the lot? It's not technically incorrect, but if you want to talk the talk, you say, do you have a plot plan, would be the way to just, everybody's going to know what you're talking about. Okay. One thing to note before we even get into the items I have labeled here is that the plot plan is essentially theoretical. The house has not been built yet. So the placement of this home on this lot is really just for fit purposes. It's like, we're going to see if the size of the footprint of this home will fit in the building envelope of this piece of property. It could scoot a little bit one way or the other. It could be pushed forward or back. So don't have your clients use this to have a fence done or anything like that, because it's worth the few $100s to get a survey to have that done or have the fence company do it. This won't work necessarily. If you have a foundation survey, it looks almost identical to this, except that's an as-built picture. So those are the differences between the two. Make sense?
So one of the most important things you said, because I've had clients for years that really screwed up. They went, property now it looks like right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to your neighbor, they go, I don't care, you can do it. You put your $10,000 fence up, and you go to sell it 2 years later, and it's 5 feet on your neighbor's
Yeah,
property.
you got an encroachment.
Yeah.
It happens so
I
often.
won't discredit them.
Yeah, yeah. It's far more common than it needs to be,
Yeah.
for sure.
And some of y'all won't remember this, but back in the day,
I don't like that, it's on my property.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. Remember back in the day, Condo, you'll remember this back in the day, remember the lenders used to do a survey for an encumbrance. And they wouldn't, they wouldn't close the mortgage unless it was taken care of. And so.
John Cole did most of it.
Yep.
I made a house on Bellmead Boulevard, we bought it, it was a competitive environment, we were fighting with 5 other people. We way overpaid for it. No survey at all, that's fine, we'll take it, fences are all around it, everything's fine, he lives there 5 years, wife gets divorced, he's out, fire comes in, fence is over the neighbor's property, the fence is over the neighbor's property, on his property by 20 feet.
Missed it by that much, huh? Just
The neighbor-
a little bit.
That's Bill Lee property.
Yeah. That yard got negatively impacted a bunch.
If they have been here for so long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
7 years.
there's a conspicuous use clause or something like that. So there you go.
Yeah.
Very adverse possession, especially when they're your neighbor.
Did you?
Well, on that topic, if you want your clients or you want a foundation survey from the builder, you'll have to ask for that, because in this market, exactly, yeah, that's right. You will have to ask for that. This is other markets in the country require an as-built survey before they'll close, before you can get a certificate of occupancy. Nashville's not, the MSA is not one of those areas. I have yet to have that. So you're going to see it the moment you sell it. I tell you what, any big builder, most of this is going to apply to, just because of the sheer numbers of things, the big builders that you're going to work with in town, the Beezers, the DR Hortons, because they're building the majority of the homes in the biggest band of price range that we're dealing with, $300,000 to $800,000. And they're going to, almost every one of them, I would be shocked if you went into a transaction, they didn't have your clients sign one of these before they got started. It would be an oversight on their part. So you're definitely going to see these if you're working with those builders, and likely others too. But just know what I said, it's not an as-built. If you want one of those, you'll have to ask for it. They could make you, they could ask you to pay for it too.
So what, if we're representing buyer, what do you guys tell my buyers when you present this to them? Because some of my buyers are CS type people, and they're going, I ain't signing that. What am I, why am I signing it? Why do you want me to sign it? If I sign that, what am I accepting? So
You are accepting that this is the lot that you want to build on. Did everybody hear the question? Okay, good. So you're signing, they're signing that this is the lot that they want, that these are the lot measurements of the actual property boundaries. Those are going to be accurate. And that the builder is essentially certifying, and the customer is acknowledging that the footprint of the home they're asking for fits in that lot, and there are no encroachments. So that's all. You're not, that's it.
Well, you're also acknowledging that this is going to be a left-hand garage home. The driveway's going to be over here, so don't come back to me later and say, oh, I thought my garage was going to be on the right hand.
you
No.
mean somebody really do?
They do. And this could be different.
Yes.
This could be different than what your actual garage hand is, though. They might just, I mean,
Yeah, they can, the builder can. flip
somebody
it,
at
do whatever
Delta and
right.
Associates,
They have the right to flip it if they
Mhm.
say, hey,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
have to do it.
that's right.
Because utility poles, if utilities were easier to
Yeah.
get to on this side, then
Or
they
the-
gotta flip the home.
Or the sewer main, falls under where the driveway is going to be or something like that. So there are any number of reasons the builder has discretion on which side the garage is on.
So you always make that clear too. The guys, they may
Yeah.
get in here and find out
Mhm.
that the utilities are in XYZ, they have.
Yeah,
they
it's,
have to flip the whole house from a mirror.
That's right.
to a mirror.
because we frequently get customers who will ask which side. And as a small aside, one thing if you have, being an on-site agent, I've had this 100 times if I've had it twice. People come in, see a plan that they want to build, model home plan, for instance, garage is on the left. We're going to build them the same plan. They go, I love this. I love it. And suddenly their garage gets flipped to the right and they walk into that house and they're like, I hate this. This is not the same house that I walked into.
Literally the same house.
Not lying. That has happened.
Numerous times.
It will happen. If you sell enough new homes, you will have that happen. I guarantee you. So this is not a guarantee that the garage is going to be on the left or the right. This one happened to be. And generally they're going to try to do the right thing. But Delta Associates, who put this plot plan together, the builder has probably taken all the elevation specific footprints, and that means the front of the house can change the angles and where the front of the house is. So the different fronts have different depths sometimes, but they're going to take, this is called a Ridgefield plan. They took a basic Ridgefield plan, elevation, whatever it is, and they plopped it down on there to make sure that it's going to fit. And that's all they did. So they've got them saved in their computer and they just throw it on there. It's got nothing to do with what the builder ultimately determines where that home needs to be built on the lot. So.
All the house falls within the
Building envelope.
Correct. Yep. Because building envelopes are getting smaller and smaller as lots get smaller and smaller, as land gets more expensive. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. Things are getting more expensive. All right. Number one, the minimum building setbacks. For those of you who don't know, you cannot just build anywhere you want inside a piece of property. On these new home developments, there are building envelopes inside, and that is the dashed line that's inside the darker property boundary outside. So you see the bold lines with the that are on the edges of the property, and those are the property lines. Inside that, you see that dashed line, and you'll see, for instance, at the back where the number 5's pointing to, we'll get to that in a second, that 15-foot MBSL/PUDE. That's the building envelope starting right there. You can't build any of the home structure or anything beyond that into the lot. That's a pretty deep one. So you got a lot of room to put a pool in, for instance, or something like that, provided the topography works out. But that is the building envelope. And this is going to tell you the minimum building setbacks, how far off the property line the building envelope starts. So in this case, the front yard's got to be a minimum of 20 feet from the curb or the edge of the lot, essentially. Side yards have to be 5 feet. The minimum is 5 feet, and you'll have some 10 feet easements depending on if they've got. They could have an easement down this between lots or something like that for a pipe, exactly. So utilities running through there, and then in the rear yard it's 15 feet. So that is the boundary in which you can build the actual home, and it's going to be they're going to give you the exact building setbacks. Typically, they're going to be the same throughout the community. Corner lots will be a different story. So a lot of times corner lots, just as an aside, are considered to be premium, but be aware, while a builder might add extra stuff on the house on the side because it's high visibility when you drive by it and they want it to look nice, whereas an interior lot, you just kind of get the basic side of the house. You also have a setback off of that street. So you got two roads, each of them has a front setback off of it. So it's going to, maybe a smaller home can only fit there. You're going to have less yard perhaps. So corner lots are not just a blanket good thing for everybody. So just be aware of that as you're looking at those with your customers.
And then the definition, I've never really understood it. Now, the definition of the structure of what can be built in or outside the building envelope. The structure is anything that is connected to the foundation or tied into the roof line. So a deck can go outside of a building envelope because it's literally just wood structure that butts up to a home. It's not tied into the roof line or come from the foundation. That's why a lot of these customers ask me all the time, well, how can my driveway go across the building envelope? Correct. It's not part of the structure. It's just a piece of concrete that butts up to the structure. And if you do a covered porch, that ties into the roof line, that has to be inside the building envelope. So that's a definition of what has to be in a building envelope. If it's tied into the roof line or the foundation, it has to be in the building envelope.
On a corner lot,
Mm-hmm.
the first house we ever built, which is silly to be the first time to build a custom home, but we wanted the house faced one way and the street address was another, and we fought forever to get that changed. Is that something typical that your street address, your house will face that way, and is that something be done. Do you have a street address long before there's a house there?
Typically, yes.
Typically you do. Some communities, there's one in Nolensville right now that has 2 different addresses actually assigned to it.
Mhm.
800 Novales. So sometimes you'll have a choice, and whichever one gets registered, after they purchase is the one that the fire department has. For instance, emergency services has that.
Like we
But-
said earlier, the fire department and 911, they're the top of the food chain in that decision. So whatever they have recorded is going to go in their emergency system. That is what the address is going to be.
And typically,
Should be. They're the person that needs to know that address and get to that home if there's an emergency. So they are the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Not
Kind of, yeah.
What's
I
that?
mean, Like if you look at some of these on the corner,
mhm.
can my house face, does it have to face inside the cul-de-sac? Or can it face the outside? And a lot of times that gives you a
Yeah.
side entry garage versus a front entry garage, if that makes sense.
And sometimes it's a case by case, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But the builder, so if you picture, most lots are rectangular in shape. So one direction has plenty of depth to fit the home in, garage, however deep the home is. If you turn it the other way, suddenly you're really challenged to fit a home in of the same size in there, and it might not work. So it is really a case by case thing. And most builders have a plan for what they want to do. And just like asking for an option that's not in their option catalog, it's worth asking, but they're going to go, you got to face this way. This is how we've got it planned. They could. If they allow that, then they may charge you that too, because they may have to go back and have the whole thing redrawn if they already had something plotted out on there.
And I've worked with builders too, where the driveways, the handing of the garage is recorded.
Right.
So, and it's normally ones that are flat, because they understand with topo, you may have to change it. But if it's a flat community, Murfreesboro is a lot like that.
Yeah.
The community is recorded where it will say on each lot that this is a right-hand garage. So that home is going on that lot with a right-hand garage, or it's not being built.
And Josh, swimming pools, I think Steve covered it as far as foundation and roof line. Swimming pools, though, obviously can't go over the easement area, right? And they're not
Correct.
counted as part of the envelope.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, it's that
It can't be in the easement in the back. It can
Right.
be in the building
Yeah.
envelope, but can't be over the easement.
Does that make sense, Tracy?
Well, you see what you've got back there. So we'll just cut. This is down on number 6 or number 5. I can't remember which. Well, down on number 6. So some of the things we're looking at here, this MBSL and PUDE, I've had more questions about what a PUD is.
Yeah.
Like what is a PUD? Public utility and drainage easement. So it's a catch-all for, there's an easement back here. It may be drainage. It may be a public utility easement. So there might be a pipe running through that section. Typically, they're all going to be from the front, but not always. Sometimes you have your sewer drain will go to the back of a lot if there's a street down there, and that's the way that it falls most easily and can be engineered properly. So it's not a guarantee that everything's going to come off the street, but 99.9% of the time, that front easement, like you can see right there, MTE-MC, right where number 6 points to, that's Middle Tennessee Electric. That's where their easement is. They've got one there. And an easement just means they have the right to come in and dig that part up to fix stuff, and they don't have to ask you to do it. They have automatic access to do that.
Is a setback the same concept or only just easements?
The setback is more for the aesthetics of the neighborhood. They want to dictate where home fronts can be typically, and you can't deviate from it too much because of the streetscape. And if you have, Franklin, for instance, stopped letting builders do garage. They won't approve plans where the garage protrudes farther forward than the main body of the house. So like if you have a front porch, the garage can't come past that forward on the lot. So you've seen a lot of what we call snout houses sometimes that have a big, it's like welcome home to your garage, and then around the side there's your door over here. Places like that have where there's a ton of interest and they have a very active planning and zoning committee. They've taken those things into account, and so they also want to make sure that all of the streetscape looks like. We don't have one sitting back and one sitting way up forward, and it's uniform. It keeps it looking nice. And so it's a value thing to have those and to keep it within a certain area so that it's not a free run of build it anywhere you want.
And going along with that, what they're going to assume is the builder is going to want to move the home to the front of the building envelope as much as he can, because that creates less expense for him. His utility pulls to the home are cheaper. His
Less
driveway
driveway.
concrete is cheaper.
Yep.
So the builder, in this instance, it's on the screen, the builder could have moved that home back quite a distance on that lot. But they're not going to do that unless the homeowner pays for the difference, because they've done a budget based off of building that home from the front of the building envelope.
That's right. And you can see there's at the front, pointing where number 6 is, that 20-foot MBSL, minimum building setback line. You can't be in front of that, but because this is a cul-de-sac lot, it's pie shaped. And so it gets narrower at the front, wider to the back. And this home, the corners are touching the building envelope, the farthest forward point that it's allowed to be built, that it'll fit.
Yeah.
So that's something to realize too. Cul-de-sacs are super popular, and for obvious reasons. I mean, it's a no through street. You can have, if you got kids, they can play in the street down there, which happens on Aunt Nanny's place all the time, of course. But if you have a wide home, or a home may not fit all the way to the front of the lot, so you're losing a little bit of backyard as they have to back it up. Just, not a critical thing, but something to keep in mind.
If the buyer decides to pay to have the house backed up, does that add value for the future sale, or?
In a neighborhood situation, it's going to be more important that it look uniform on the street, my opinion. I mean, there's no real benefit to backing it up unless there's a geographic or topography reason to push it back. And sometimes there are. You get lots don't just slope front to back, obviously. They slope side to side, and they do all kinds of things around here. And so, but the builder, all of the builders in this market, with the exception of doing a real custom build, they'll dictate which side of the lot the garage is going to go on, in almost every case. So that's something that they'll determine.
May I ask a question?
Of course, yes, sir.
I sit down with you guys, here's the plat, and we get to choose between 30 lots. You are representing the seller. That is in your best interest to sell lots. My best interest to sell a house here in one day. I ask you, what are traditionally the best sellers in this development?
Mm-hmm.
Can you allow to point to those and say, well, these are usually the best sellers for this reason? And the
Sure.
cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
backs up common space,
Sure.
2 doors down pool.
Yes.
You can say that, and you're not.
It's not a breach of ethics.
It's not a breach, no.
Not at all.
They traditionally resell.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of times in a new community, if somebody comes in and you've got a loss leader price point at $389,900, but you and I both know that all the homes are going to be $450,000 to $500,000, and a customer comes in and they want to buy the $389,900 home, their resale value 10 years later is much more than the guy that paid $525,000, because he's in a bigger pool of buyers. So if someone comes in and says, hey, I'm just a new community, what do you think is the best value for me to buy? This is my first home and we're going to want to upscale later. Absolutely. We're open to having those discussions about where we think the best lot would be. If it's your family's needs, would buy for investment and stuff like that. Because like I said earlier, we know more. You're coming into my world here, so I know more than you. I think in resale, a lot of times it's more even. In new home construction, we do have an advantage, I believe. And so I try and be very honest and really give as much information as I can
Right.
Yeah. To the buyer, to make sure that their experience is good and what they buy is a good investment.
So some of that is actually driven by what's in the plan. You can't put same houses right next to one.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
No same house, no same elevation, no same brick.
Now, would you say going in on the front end of a new development or economically buy on that
Absolutely.
It's trade-offs, Wallace. So you got on one, you got the financial upside of being the first buyer.
That's what I always talk about.
It's risky because you don't, I mean, somebody who thought that in 2007 probably got a great deal on the first house, and then the rest of them didn't get built. So, you're trading off that. If it's,
They got a big yard.
they got a very big yard, maybe bigger than they wanted to, and you're gonna have to put up with construction traffic. Some people aren't willing to do it, but if you've got that, I'll tell you, I see the same basic group of people at the beginnings of neighborhoods. They typically have done a new home before and they know the deal. They're like, well, I can live with new construction or construction around me for a couple of years. We're going to sell this in 2 years anyway and move up. So let's get in early, and we know which lot we want. They're usually super easy. They already know they're going to buy your home, and they've already done all of the legwork. But yeah, that's a well-worn strategy for folks. I just meet people all the time who've done the new home ladder every place they've been.
Absolutely.
So
Most of the time because prices go up during the building period, they'll make a lot of money.
oh yeah.
Or having lived through four crashes. Got my clients in early on a really nice development. We got in early, the house got up, market crashed. Developer crashed. Bank took it back. Went back to the county. They were $800 million homes way back. And so they went back.
Oh, we're fancy.
We talking about Stream Valley here? We talking about Stream Valley?
No, probably not.
You know what? But it happened. So I mean,
Absolutely.
Probably Bennington.
Yeah. That's why you don't see a lot of developers. Yeah.
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 Now they're surrounded by
That was probably Bennington, actually. That was Newmark had that whole neighborhood.
I'll bet
And-
some would do that, yeah.
They went out of business when the Greek economy tanked, and that was like, oh, I didn't know you owned Newmark. Okay, well, there they go. And
And that's a you pay your money to.
that's right.
That was the high end brand. No, that was the low end brand or something.
No,
Newmark was their,
Texas based.
correct, that's right. And then they had Frederick Harris was their upper,
yeah.
that was their upper brand, so to speak. So
Somebody Newmark called me.
they built a great house.
Yeah.
I had one too in McKay's Mill, and I was shocked and saddened to see them go out of business. But many a builder has come here and gone packing not too long after that. So we could talk about that all day. Oh my gosh. Yeah. D.R. Horton's been here twice. So and David Weekley's
been here 2 or 3 times.
they may be on their third actually. So well, that's neither here nor there. So
Yeah, but that's why you want.
So
This is
you
why
do want to know.
Be in touch with guys like these who can really help us down our clients. who can not necessarily find
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. We can give you a pretty good idea of what to expect when I bet between the two of us, there isn't a builder other than, pickup truck builder in this town that we haven't either worked with, worked for, or know people in the organization.
You still have some crack here.
I saw that picture. I saw that
Mine's
picture of
getting a
me.
little white.
I saw that picture I got tagged in from the draft the other day, and I'm not sure how dark my hair still is. So I don't want to look.
Well, I tell you, new home construction is challenging, and it's because of the length of the relationship. A resale deal, you get a client, you list their home. In today's market, you sell it in 2 days and you close in 30. It's a 40-day relationship. New home construction is a 6 to year-long relationship with a person. So it is more difficult.
All your time, too.
They do on all our time. The upside is for me, is the satisfaction I get of, because I've done this numerous times, I can drive around this city and say that was a field and now it's 65 homes and I did that. That is a very good feeling. Plus the pipeline in front of you when you're a new home sales agent. With resale, I have my clients now, and when those clients are gone, oh, maybe I don't have a client for a while and I don't have a pipeline. New home construction, because it is out in front of you, you write contracts now, they're out in front of you, 10 months. Within that continual 10 months, you're still writing contracts. So you have a pipeline of almost guaranteed money out in front of you moving forward. So like I said, it is difficult. It's emotional, but it is comforting.
Yeah,
and
it's trade-offs again.
And it's very satisfying to do what you do, with a client.
Oh, they want to be friends with you for sure.
Yeah.
They want to make a relationship. The best agents out there will have 5 or 6 agents that they just can in tough times they go, hey Wallace, you got anybody looking right now? Because I got this new phase coming up. And there you go. And suddenly you did something great for your clients because you were able to know about the new phase coming up before. So you got to understand new on-site salespeople, most of them technically aren't realtors. They are. They have the NAR designation, all that sort of thing. It's a retail environment. So be sure to know that you are walking into a store when you walk into a model home with a client. So they're gonna, just like any store, they're gonna pitch the product and but then they have this relationship. You hope. Not everybody. And so
One of the best agents I ever met came across the new home.
Yeah.
And they were female, new home construction, wonderful. Tough negotiators,
mhm.
and they knew exactly what they were doing. And they knew how to take your client and ask your client the right questions. So your client, that they want.
Right.
And I just sat there and kept my mouth shut, just soaked it all in.
Mhm.
Went, oh my gosh, what a blessing. I had to stay here.
Yeah. And you can just be hands off and say, I'm just here to, if something comes up that I don't understand, I can chime in, but they're handling it. And the way the deal typically works is that you bring in your client, they buy a home, and the new home salesperson really is shuttling the paperwork and doing all the legwork between there and closing. So you want to stay engaged, but
They make it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Gonna squeeze every dick.
yeah, just wait till you told them their garage was going to be on the right and it's not. And that's where you earned it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have an email? No, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, we're kind of skipping around here, but again, the north seeking arrow on this, again, same considerations. If you want to know where the sun's coming from, or if you have a cultural or religious preference buyer who wants to make sure their home faces a certain direction, very useful information on there. Again, the graphic scale, just like on the plat map, measure it with your this is an engineer's ruler again. When we get to floor plan, those are architect's scales. Check it before you try to measure something out to make sure it hasn't been lost in the print or copy process. We pointed out the property boundary lines. I've got number 4 pointing there. You can see the dark line that's dashed all the way around. That's the actual property boundary. That's the limits of what you're buying. So inside that is the
Hey,
setback
Josh?
line. Yes.
Josh, on those points of the black lines,
Uh-huh.
that's where the agents would find the pins for the lot, or would they only find the pins in those 4 corners?
They're going to pin the corners wherever the lot makes a turn. They're going to pin it. So if it's a significant, in fact, 4114 that I sold has, when you go to the back of that, it actually comes across, and the back lot line is not straight like 4115 is. It actually makes a turn there, and that corner where it makes the turn is also pinned. So it's not just the 4. The pins can be hard to find. So if you're looking for it, they take them. If it's an older section, they may take a metal detector to find it. They can get pulled by mistake by landscapers being back there, or equipment running over it, or it gets buried. So definitely leave it up to the experts to find those things. Get a surveyor and have that done for you, so that it's somebody else's fault if it gets missed.
Yeah, there's normally
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And my clients go, yeah, you go, that's corner, well, that's corner. And then this white space gone.
Yeah.
Somebody knocked it down. Is there in fact a pin beside the white space, or do I counsel my clients take your rebar,
I wouldn't have them do it. They're going to have a metal pin in the ground somewhere. Whether the stake it indicates where the corner of the lot is, that's a total crapshoot. Yeah, I mean, I've seen them. Sometimes they're in farther because they're marking where the building envelope is or where silt fence needs to go. And so don't just
Corners, you don't see.
typically, yeah. I mean, if you can, I would always ask my builder to put stakes out where the property corners are, not, so not every dot and tittle, so to speak, of where it is, but
Right.
I want to be able to look out from the curb and look back and go, there's that, especially when it's woods and stickers and you don't want
Right. And just so
to
everybody
roll
knows,
back there in your
I mean,
dress pants.
all the stakes and all the property corners can be taken away. There's always a point of reference in the street. So a surveyor can find a point of reference. All he needs is a point of reference, and then he can determine everything moving forward from there. Those little silver things that you see in streets,
Yep.
that would look like they have a nail or screw driven through them, that's a point of reference from a surveyor.
That's it.
So normally they don't come onto the property to start. They go into the street, they find a point of reference, they
And they
use
can
that
show
with their
off that.
GPS and they go off of that.
That's right.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay. We kind of touched on 5 and 6. Those are the setback lines. Again, like I said a while ago, the majority of the utilities, the majority of the time come in from the street. And that's where you're going to have that, for instance, that Middle Tennessee electric easement right there. And then the setback line is actually behind that for 20 feet. So they're not one and the same. Sometimes the setback and the easement can be the same, but not always. Actually, not usually, I would say. And then 9, the last note here was to draw your attention to the fact that this is a plot plan. Again, it's not an as-built survey of where the house actually sits on the lot. This is prior to construction. You'll get one of these, or you'll have one of these done. A builder will have it done to make sure that it fits. But again, it's not indicative of exactly where the corner is. So you got to have that, either get a foundation survey once that portion's been complete, or wait till the home's done and have it surveyed for your clients, or have them survey it, however they want to do it. But that is everything I can tell you about this plot plan. Now, the one thing I did was include a second one that looks like this. It doesn't have any arrows or anything on it. The thing I wanted to point out here is, first of all, they don't all look like this. So if you get one like this, it's just as valid. It just doesn't, it's not from Delta and Associates. So there's no set format. They just all basically have the same information. But you'll notice on this other one, it's got trees marked out on it. It's got great detail in terms of which ones stay and which ones don't. It's pretty unusual to get that. But in certain neighborhoods where you have HOA requirements, CC&Rs, covenants and restrictions, sorry, don't mean to jargon y'all, but covenants and restrictions that dictate what has to be on the lot or how many trees have to be saved, you may get something this detailed. This is from Ladd Park. So if anybody knows Ladd Park, this is from one of the lots there, and there was a requirement to maintain as many of the trees on there certain to keep. And so those all had to be plotted out on the plan. So what questions do you have before I hand this over to Steve to do floor plans and cabinet plans? Anything?
We're clear.
Everybody
Thank you
awake?
much.
Everybody awake, Tracy?
I think they're awake.
All right.
All right.
Moving right along.
Moving
Great
along.
information. Thank you.
Glad to, of course.
Now let's get into the fun part of the actual home and the plan. So far we went into a community and we have worked with an agent to find out what lot we're going to put our home on. Then we've worked to how our home fits on that lot. Your next step is going to be with the actual plan of the home. And most builders will have their clients sign off on their plans. Some builders ask them to sign off on the drafts, some actually have them sign off on a final. Either one is fine. I'm a proponent of wanting them to sign off on the final plan because that has the word final in it. And that's what I'm getting. But just know that they're going to ask you to probably sign off on a set of plans. And if they don't, maybe, I'd actually maybe request to even look at a set of plans, before you can, if they didn't want you to sign off on So first thing I want to go over is the item number 1 talks about the roof lines, ceiling lines going into the home. Some,
Page are we on?
this first page of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's number 1, oblong to the side of the home here.
Go ahead.
Some builders build, when you go into the inside of the first floor, the ceiling height could be 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot. Second floor could be 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot. Ceiling heights can change. So on these plans, you'll see moving right out to the side here, it actually designates what I would call the first floor plate. The first floor plate is the ceiling, the top of the first floor of the home extended all the way out through the side of the home. Now in this particular plan, there is a 10-foot first floor. So this plan, when it's built, when you go inside and you look up the drywall ceiling, it's going to be 10 feet from the floor. The second floor on this plan is actually 8-foot ceilings. So what in this particular design, what this builder's done is he's decided that the first floor, because the person lives more on the first floor, is more important. And so I'm going to really put most of my features on the first floor. And so in this plan, they actually did 10-foot ceilings on the first floor. They did 8-foot doors on the first floor, larger trim, baseboard. So it was just their business model to really doll up the first floor. And then when I get to the second floor, I'm going to go back to more reasonable home. Some builders will do 9 on the first and 9 on the second. So it's just a choice. Number 2 talks about let me go over the windows. Also, you'll see on here where you see 8-foot window height on the first floor, and the second floor says 7-foot window height. To look at it, you maybe not even notice it, but what that's saying is on the first floor of this property, all of the windows are taller. They're a foot taller than the second floor, because proportionally it makes more sense. If I have a 10-foot ceiling on the first floor, I don't want a 5-foot window. It's just not going to look proportionally well. But again, that's another feature that they've added to the first floor to doll up the first floor of the property versus the second floor.
Is there a price range we should expect? 9, 10?
With lumber prices the way they
Yeah.
are now, I mean, it used to be
Yeah.
about, I'm not kidding, like $10,000 to go up a foot.
Yep.
On a first floor.
Yep.
It might be more than that now because
Yeah.
lumber's so expensive, but
I want to do 10.
Yeah.
We'll go, yeah, we go for
Right.
mhm.
same thing.
Yeah, and builders will, it depends on the builder you get. I mean, if they make that kind of change, they're probably going to charge you a lot for it, but it adds a lot to
Yeah.
the home. I mean, if you've ever been in one that's got 8-foot ceilings and then into 10, big difference,
Yeah.
big difference.
And one thing on that too, some builders use the same floor plan and they repetitiously build it without engineering every build. It's a big question to ask of your builders. Let me repeat
Why
that.
is that
Ask a
important?
builder, is my particular customer's home, is that set of plans engineered? Or is it a duplication of one engineering that you've done and you just replicate it lot by lot by lot?
Why is that?
For drainage, because every lot is individual.
Okay.
If I design a home to build on a flat table, I can duplicate it right there on a flat table and that's fine. But to duplicate a home on any topography change, some of your better builders will say every home that I do for you is engineered specifically for your customer on that lot.
You got a hill that falls off or a hill that's coming down.
Just settlements and everything. It's another step that incurs money. And so, but it does create a better situation for that particular home to be built on that lot. An engineer has stamped it, saying that I looked at this plan on this lot.
What's the staff engineer's report mean?
Just means that an engineer, basically, when he stamps it, he's put his license on the line. Is what-
He's a licensed engineer to say.
Absolutely, yes.
He's
Yeah.
got a, if he goes,
Yeah.
you have to carry insurance.
The other scenario would be a builder has had a set of plans stamped by an engineer, and then I'm just going to build them on lots. And that's fine. I mean, that happens a lot. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But if each home is engineered and stamped individually, that's another set of eyes that's looked at that particular home being built on that particular piece of land.
So if we see steep lots falling off or steep hill coming down the back, well, we need to go.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if not, maybe you need to.
It couldn't hurt, but now you're getting into asking a builder to do something that's out of his business model that they normally don't do. And I just know it's another step that's been looked at that, in my opinion, yes, on that, I know I'm working with a builder that goes the extra mile to make sure that my home is built, professionally.
Even in this hot environment. In other words, do we have the leverage to ask for that in this market?
We don't have the
We don't have
leverage to
much
ask for
leverage.
anything in this market. Where have you been? Retired, yeah. Absolutely.
No,
Now-
there's not a lot of
Yeah.
leeway with, I mean, builders know they're the ones filling in the inventory gap. So they've got us over a barrel kind of at the moment when
Right.
you're bringing a buyer in. So
And again, a lot of part of this workshop, what it does is when you ask that question of the builder or the builder's agent, they know who they're working with. They're working with an experienced person that does this for a living. One of the things in real estate I've always noticed is I have a real estate agent, I have a license, and I have a client that comes to me that wants to do I want to do a build. Are you qualified to help me with a new home construction build? How many of your clients ever ask you that? They just ask you if you have a real estate license, I'd like you to help me buy a home. So if I was getting a divorce, I don't think I would go to an attorney and say, do you have a license to conduct law? And them go, yeah. Okay, well, you come do my divorce. We interview people for their knowledge in a lot of industries other than real estate. And it does surprise me. So the more education you can get in the industry, I think if that question does arise from a buyer, then you can answer the question positively. Yes, I've been through training. I've done these transactions. I know how to talk the talk, and I know how to walk the walk. And yes, I am qualified to help you in this representation of this new home construction bill. And then when you can say that to the builder or the builder's agent, some of these things we're telling you, they know who they're dealing with.
Which makes the builder and the agent a lot more comfortable.
With each other.
Have you ever gone back to your builder and gone, these people are gonna be, I can tell them right now, they're gonna be tired, not much building.
Is he asking me to answer that question in
I-
public?
I was trying hard not to. I didn't want to
Tabby,
be
help
nodding
me.
along too, obviously, but
Well, we can't hear Steve, so we can't help you. We can't hear condo, so we can't help you. It's kind of hard on this side.
The answer is yes. Condo asked me if I've ever went to my builder and said, after a meeting with a client, tell the builder that these people are probably going to be difficult, I guess would be the word, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the answer is yes, because like I've said in the past, a new home agent is unique. We meet your clients and we form a relationship with your clients. It is what it is. In resale, it does not happen. So we, in my opinion, owe a little more duties and a little more services to you and those buyers, to tell you the truth. And so if I do hear a situation like that, yes, I do talk with my builder about it, but then I give the respect to the buyer's agent, and I call the buyer's agent and have a conversation with them about this is going to be a long-term relationship. There are probably going to be some what ifs that's going to happen in this, transaction. And are your buyers invested in that process? Because it is not a comfortable thing to go through a 10-month relationship with a person that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No matter what that situation is. And
Well, and not every
Talk to me, the agent, go look, I tell you, I'm nervous. This is gonna be a long haul. We need to think about this situation.
Well, not every builder and customer are the right fit together. It's just the
Absolutely.
way, I mean,
Yeah.
every builder's got sort of a personality of how they do business. And if you've got somebody who wants to make a lot of changes, going to Lennar or DR Horton's not going to be a place
good
that
fit.
it's not happening.
On the Kmart budget. It ain't.
It's not,
Oh, we never see that,
yeah, never.
ever.
Yeah. And have I in the past had some meetings with some people and say, I don't think this is a good fit? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're paid for the deal close, so, we're determined to find a way to make it work.
Right.
But my relationship with you for the next 10 years is key because you and I are gonna work with a lot more deals. than
Correct.
one client.
Mhm.
Right.
So it's really key to me and I respond to you.
That's right.
Right.
You get in my realtor farm or other.
Mm-hmm. Look, now, item number 2. Now, you talked about lumber costs. You talked about lumber costs, and we talked about going from 9-foot, 10-foot ceilings. Item number 2 on here talks about roof pitches. You'll see on this plan here, you see where that says 12-12. There's a rise and a run to a roof pitch. And the rise is obviously how high it is. And the run is how far it is from a certain distance. The higher the first number, the steeper the roof pitch. So a 10-12 roof pitch would be a little less steeper going down to flat. Now, which one of those roof lines do you think is more expensive, an 8-12 or a 12-12? 12-12, yeah. The higher the pitch is, the more the peak. It's more aesthetically pleasing. People like them, no ifs, ands, and buts about it, but it requires more lumber. More lumber, more stress positions, and it costs more money.
Hard
So,
to get people up there too.
hey, they get up there easy.
Dude, you, man.
Yeah, they
And
they
they're
get
not
up.
tied
They get
on.
up.
It's just like, oh my.
So this is a topic that I have heard with some of my builder clients, that they are going back to their architects and they are changing 12-12 roof pitches to 10-12 roof pitches because they're trying to save lumber. And aesthetically, it's not going to make a huge difference, but if you look at it, it is different. It is different. And so watch your plans to see if your roof pitches are beginning to change. The first number is only one you want to look at.
Yeah, it's always going to be 12.
What's the first number I'm seeing trying to?
Where it says 12-12,
Yeah.
see the 12-12? If that said 10-12,
It tends to top.
That means for every, it's
Yeah.
always going to be 12 on the bottom. For
Right.
every foot it goes laterally, it's going to rise
Rise.
by the top number, by 10 inches in
By
that
10 inches.
case, or by 14 inches. So for every foot, it comes this difference of 14 inches.
right. And like on this particular plan, if you flip to some of the other pages, you'll see some 10-12s and some 8-12s. But your main ones you want to watch is your front elevations of the home, because that's where the aesthetic part of the home is, where most of the gables are. So, and I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, a 10-12 roof pitch is not a bad thing by any means. But I'm just saying that is something I've heard in the
Yeah.
industry that they're going
Depends
to
on-
start working on.
It depends on the style of the home too.
Absolutely.
Like a Mediterranean style roof's going to be a pretty low pitch.
Yep.
We just don't have a lot of those.
Then you got a flat spot on the roof. That's it.
Where you at?
This page here.
Side elevation?
It's got the flat
Yeah.
spot on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have that. There'll be a ridge cap on shingles molded over top of that.
Let's go to item number 3. Just want to circle that so we would know that this is the front elevation A. Most builders will, when they talk about the front elevation, that is the facade of the front of the house. It's the style of the front of the house. It's not where it's pointing or anything like that. And most builders will have numerous elevations for their homes. Typically 3 is what you'll find in most either national or small regional or large regional builders. They'll have the same floor plan with 3 different elevations for the front. The reason they do that goes back to what you were saying earlier. When a developer creates a neighborhood and a builder goes in, he wants that neighborhood to have diversity and basically look good, have a good streetscape. So if I build the same home up and down with the same elevation, years later, the investment is what it is. It's not great. But if I have different elevations and then I don't allow the same brick to be built next door, no elevation next door or across the street, I create a better community is what I create. Yeah, absolutely. Create a better environment.
What's a breeze?
it's a board that,
Say, is it free?
it's freeze.
Freeze.
Freeze board is, it sits across the front underneath the soffit, which is the flat part underneath the gutter. And so the freeze board, usually it's as much decorative as it is functional, but it keeps water from penetrating in that spot.
When you lay brick and you get to the top, where I think that's the top of the brick, it's like on a baseboard where you have shoe mold that goes around. It's mostly decorative, but again, it does have a use as well.
Usually clean water.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Now, elevation, let's talk about elevations. This plan has certain elevations, but make sure when you're working with a builder and you say, well, we like this floor plan, and you're saying I can't build elevation A because the lot next door is elevation A, but I can do B or C. My clients really like B. I think I can, B. Let's go with, we want to build elevation B. Don't assume that the interior of that home is identical. It is probably not. So ask them to show you the first floor and second floor plan for elevation B versus elevation A. Because when the front elevations are changed, a lot of times your square footages will change. I have worked with a builder that had a floor plan that was a great floor plan, but the difference from the elevation A to elevation C took half of the master closet out. And elevation A is what was on the marketing handout. So every customer that came in said, oh my God, I love this large master closet. The wife just loved them. But then when they picked elevation C, and I'd send them their final plans to sign off, if I had not had the conversation earlier, now I'm in a discussion. And I don't want to be in a discussion. I wanted to disclose, talk as much as I can, set your expectations right so you know what you're getting before we have to have that discussion. So I always understand just because the elevation is a change, it absolutely can change the interior of the house.
That's a great point, but how often does it happen that somebody gets to the end of the deal and goes, this is the thing? Would they let it go that far?
If you're working with an agent that didn't talk to you about that,
Yeah, because it
it
slide
could
past,
happen,
yeah.
absolutely.
Well, or the agent that, if you get an agent who's not, maybe it's not on the ball or something like that, and they
Yep.
send an elevation A floor plan for the customers to sign off on, has the correct design for the front on one page, but it's got the floor plan for a different one. I mean,
It can
or they
happen.
never covered it, and suddenly somebody, the
It
one,
can
I
happen.
know the home he's talking about, and you go, oh my God, this is not even close to the same closet that we saw. And it's, unfortunately, it's pretty common. It's much more common than you'd think.
How do you have that all, just keep getting in their face, or you guys go, hey, ask the agent, sometimes you can tell whether your agent, what your agent's, buyer's agent's
Mhm.
level of sophistication is.
Well, we should have that conversation with the buyer. We should, when I go over the plans with the customer and when they check an elevation, I want to do this elevation, I immediately flip to the floor plan elevation sheet for that and show, absolutely. Yeah, I show them the difference immediately. When I'm
Then
just,
you have them sign,
yes,
so
Correct.
they don't come back tomorrow.
absolutely.
Well, it doesn't prevent that, but definitely, yeah.
It's
It's not a preventative. but
Yeah. It's not a
There you go.
not a guarantee.
I seem to recall your initials being,
Yeah.
you, I mean, the amount of things that,
You don't want to bring that up.
the amount of things, the number of things that can be forgotten between contract and closing is staggering. So,
Staggering.
yes.
That's just what you get the lawyer.
No, you never want to be like, well, I got that email, and you just want to be like, kind of what you told me, so.
Let's go to item number 4. Should be on our side elevation. Okay, let's got your first page is your front and back elevation. And your second page is your elevation A side elevations. And then we get into elevation B, front and back. And then elevation B, sides. The number 4, the thing I've circled is, and this is a typical question, this comes up all the time with new home construction from buyers and sellers wanting to know, they don't understand this, is why is that not brick up there? I got an all brick home. Why is that part of the front of my home or that part of the side of my home not brick? Brick is heavy and brick has to all generate from a plate. ledge that's on the foundation. So all brick has to come up from a ledge from the foundation and can only go up. And it can continue to go up and up and up and up. But if there's a space on the roof line that does not have a brick ledge, the weight of brick, unless there's a lot of additional lintel, a lot of extra expense to put in to hold it. And most builders do not like it because it's a warrantable issue. So on this plan where you see Hardy up here on items number 4, and then go towards the front of the home or the back of the home where you see that section, that's because that's on the roof line. There's nothing under to support it other than wood. So in those cases, that home's built correctly. Nobody's trying to take the brick away from anybody, but structurally that's how it should be built. And those will be either a vinyl or a Hardy. It's got to be a lighter material.
Now, like this note here says stone material.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Lick and stick.
Lick and stick. Lick and stick.
Now, for those.
Very few use real stone.
What is lick and stick?
That is what we actually in the sales center, you would call it cultured stone.
Culture stone.
That is stone look lightweight material that is slivered, that is just really just facade material. So that's I can't, I mean, the expense of having real stone put on a home anymore is just outrageous. So you're going to see that almost every time on a home, unless it's very high.
It's decorative on one side and flat on the other side.
Right.
And so it's applied just like brick.
Yeah.
Lick and stick.
That's not from the marketing department, by the way. That's I think
Sure.
if you have a really good relationship with them and they can get the joke, let her fly. But you should use, that's a good way to put the new home sales agent on guard, is go, I just noticed that lick and stick, and they'll go, oh, hold up.
Hold up. Yeah. Yeah. Hold up.
Y'all have any trouble with lick and stick failure?
It does. I have seen it come off. Absolutely.
But
Yeah. Because it only has, it's the one that some of it has mortar in between and those stay better, but there's a process called dry stack where the customer they just like the visual of it. The only adhesive is on the back and there's nothing in between the stones. It's called a dry stack application. It's pretty, but in those applications, yes, I've seen them fall off. You can just have them put back on, but
it
absolutely
doesn't, there's backer board behind it though, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll find a piece laying in the mulch bed is what you'll do.
It's like you've been to my house.
You got one?
It's like you've been to my house. Shouldn't be there.
All right, any questions on any of that so far? All right, let's move to area calculations at item number 5. It's on where we get to the first floor plan for elevation A. Everybody there?
Hold it up.
Oh, right there. Looks like this. That's it.
Right next to the optional conservatory.
First floor elevation.
Okay, now this part, this is very important. This is the one I would focus on tremendously in this part of the presentation, is square footages with a set of plans can literally be drawn 3 separate ways. Your appraiser when he goes and measure a house, how does he do it? He measures the outside of the home. Okay. A home can also be measured from the center of the exterior wall, and it can be measured from the interior wall to interior wall. So it can be interior wall to interior wall, which will be drywall to drywall, middle of that piece of lumber to the other middle piece of the lumber, to exterior to exterior. Most people would think, who cares? On a 3,000 square foot home, 2 floors, it's normally between 180 and 235 square feet of a home. Now, why are there differences? Appraisal is for value for a home, for a consumer. So that's why they go outside to outside. Plus, they just can't get into people's homes, so we do outside to outside. inside of drywall to inside of drywall is what your builder wants to provide to his tradespeople. If I'm paying a painter to paint a home, I want to provide him what he's painting, drywall to drywall. And most painters charge per the square foot. So most builders will ask for 3 sets of plans from their architect, inside of drywall, middle, and exterior. What you can report in MLS, what you want to talk about to your consumer, and what a builder should report when he's staying in the home is the larger one, the consumer one, outside to outside. If you look at this one up here, you'll see there's 2 boxes here where it says area calculations, and there's a line on the left, and then there's another box to the right. This architect I know, and I know for his calculations like that, I can always know that the one to the left is drywall to drywall. The one to the right is outside to outside. So my marketing
square footage.
is outside to outside. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I should market, is outside to outside, because that's when the appraiser's going to measure the home at later. And I want to provide the largest square foot to the consumer that I can, so that he gets the largest square foot later when he resells. Well, let me tell you a little story. I had a builder account 2 years ago that called me and wanted me to come interview with him to list his properties. And he showed me his plans. He was just struggling. He was way overpriced. He had 7 specs just sitting there, and they were nice homes. They were all brick homes in Antioch, good features. Couldn't tell you why they hadn't sold. I went and interviewed with him, and he showed me his plans. And the architect that drew these plans, I knew just by looking at him, it's an architect I work with. He had left off the right ones. He had only requested the inside of drywall, because he wasn't a builder that had a good marketing team. He was just a builder. And he had handed that set of plans to his sales team, and that's how they were marketing the homes, inside of drywall to inside of drywall. When I did the calculations from outside, I called the architect I knew and said, hey, can you send me the plans with the outsides? Sure, he sends them to me. It added about 150 to 170 square feet to these homes. It dropped his dollar square foot from 178 to 152. He became in the market, and his homes sold in an all brick home. Yeah, right, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. He did hire me.
Yeah.
Because the computer can only get out what you get in, get out.
And that's why you price something $499.9 versus $500,001, because the search parameters are going to go
So he
up.
was listed 180 something, right at $180 a square feet,
Right.
when the competitive square footage in the area was selling for in the 150s, 160s. And he was all brick, and they were not, but he was still not selling anything, but then I dropped it to the sweet spot of the market, and he had all brick homes. They just took off. The homes sold very quickly. He didn't know whether to thank me or choke me, but that is and this would not be working with a buyer, but this is if you're thinking about working with a seller and a builder. These are things that can be very important for you to know, is that there are different calculations on this, and make sure, Mr. Builder, that we are using the calculation that we need to get the ultimate square footage that we can market to the public. So
The builder not have that because he's trying to save money.
no, he just never requested them. He just requested working plans for the crews. And so the architect sent him working plans for the crews, and he knew what he wants is inside of drywall to inside of drywall. The guy, he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of land. He can build a good home, but he's truly not an educated builder. He's more an investor. And he just requested what he requested. He got what he requested. He just didn't know. He presented that to his sales team. They didn't know, which was his error. He didn't hire a professional agent that knew how to do new home construction. That's the question. And what he ended up with was 11 months worth of construction and no sales. 11 months, no sales, 7 homes sitting there. Huh? Vacuum cleaners constantly running. So understand those are very, very important things to look for. Now, obviously, they're just going to be the heated square footage. All these other things are unheated square footage until you get to your optional basement floor plan down here. And it's the same thing. You've got an inside of drywall to inside of drywall, and exterior to exterior on here.
So when a
builder is marketing a new
Mhm.
home. And at what point does it hit tax records and what point is it on the market? Because I just had a house that it's a third time sold for 3,800 square feet. We found the tax record said 29. Guess what? It's 2,900. So all of a
It's a big
sudden,
difference.
It's a big difference.
we got a real nice reduction after the appraisal to say, I
Right.
was representing the buyer, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And, but how does that happen? How does the builder say it's 3814 when it's 2950?
I mean, it could be any number of different
Well,
things,
and-
but
and let me tell you, there's different ways that appraisers will measure a home as well. And this has kind of evolved over the years, and one guy starts doing it this way and it becomes more customary and then everybody starts doing it. Back in the 80s, 90s, when two-story foyers were really popular and all the new homes had two-story foyers, well, the builder would complain because he'd say, well, it costs me a lot of money in lumber and height and all that to build that two-story foyer. I know the consumer wants it, but it costs me money and you're giving me no value for it, because all you're giving me value for is the 21 by 20 great room underneath it. Well, a lot of appraisers adjusted and said, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to give you half of the square footage for that space above, because you could build the home where there would be a room up there, but there's not. But we're going to give you half that space, and you can report that by the Home Builders Association. That's who regulates all that stuff. The Home Builders Association sends out guidelines for what builders can report square footage. So there was times where I saw appraisers a powder room that maybe did not have a vent in it, or a pantry that did not have a vent in it. I've seen appraisers will not give a builder credit for that, even though it's in the entire box.
basement space,
Basement space.
very common.
That they don't give you
They don't give you the
they
full
give you
square
about 50,
footage.
60% for the basement space. So there's numerous ways to measure a home. That's a large.
That's a big.
That's a
that's
large
like somebody
number.
made a mistake
Yeah.
when they reported it. That's
It was for us.
Yeah, it worked out great for you
It
guys.
did,
Yeah.
but it turned out that it happened to the house next door as well,
Right.
we learned. So it was something that the builder was doing. A mistake
Well,
could be a mistake.
it could be any number of
No,
things. A lot of times builders
Could have been
bring
an error at the tax
plans-
records.
Well, they bring plans from other markets, and
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah.
they never bothered to calculate the square footage here,
Yeah.
and it's different. Who knows?
Yep. Now, one of the things too that I'd always, and I've had this situation come up, is a secondary bedroom. Secondary bedroom that's 12 by 12. If the closet in that bedroom, think about the closet is in that square. Okay. So imagine a 12 by 12 square with a closet dropped into it, a box. If that closet is longer than 50%, if it's more than 50%, closet's normally like 3 feet. That room turns into a 9 by 12 room. So I've had a lot of situations where a client thinks a room is 12 by 12 or 14 by 14, and the box is, but in that room is a closet that takes up floor space. And because that closet was intentionally designed to be just a little less than 50%, the builder could report 14 by 14. Then the client goes into the room when it's finished, and they don't have the 14 by 14 floor space that they needed for their 2 children that were going to live in this home. So there's guidelines and regulations on how you're supposed to record sizes of rooms as well. Now, on plans like this, they are defined. I'm talking about a marketing handout from a builder that's just a marketing handout that just says 14 by 12.
But that master bedroom closet's a good example. If that was just on a marketing handout, the way it juts out into the room, you
Yep.
can measure the full length from the back window,
Yeah.
from the back window to the door, the common wall to the master bath. Closet doesn't extend
More than
50%
50%.
or more left to right, then you can count that as the dimension. very common that you'll have the thing measured, it'll be measured from where you enter from the door, and then you'll have the closet taking up quite a bit in the room space that you can actually use, is not what the marketing handout says. I mean, because builders want it to look, they want it to look as attractive as possible. So where they can show the larger room, they're going to show the larger room.
Yes. And like I said, normally those are,
Yeah.
Just to clarify on this end, because we had some internet issues.
Sure.
The marketing piece could look like this room is 21.6 by 16 feet.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what they would have
that's
on it.
exactly what it would say.
That's right.
However, this closet sticks out, and that's allowable to call it 21.6 by 16 because it's not over the 8-foot mark there.
You're
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right.
It doesn't take up more than 50% of either one of the walls it's on.
Yeah. Thank
Go
you.
up to like a second floor where you see like a secondary closet.
There's not one
Tabby.
on that plan.
Oh, is
I
it
was
not?
Just, I was just
Okay.
looking through to look.
Okay,
for
that's
one.
okay,
There's not
Katie.
one.
There's not one.
Oh, okay.
They're all walk-ins on that.
Are they?
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to item number 6, which these are windows. This is how to read window heights and widths on a set of plans. I know I talked about when we talked about the front elevation, how there's different windows on the front, on the first floor and the second floor. But if you look right there under number 6, where that says 3060-3, that means that each one of those window panes is 3 feet wide, 6 feet high, and there's 3 of them. That's a triple, what in the industry you'd call that a triple 3060. So if you're working with an agent and you talk about window sizes and you say it's a triple 3060, they think you know what you're doing.
Wow. I'm smart now.
Make
Thank you, Steve.
Fake it till you make it.
That's right.
Triple 3060. Here I come.
There you
right.
go.
That's right.
And now let's go to, let's say, and on the second floor, those will be 3050s. So it'll say 3050. That means it's 3 feet wide and 5 feet tall.
But just one of them.
It could be 1, could be 2. In this instance, there's 3 windows there side by side. Now let's go over to the morning room, where there's a little window next to the door on the morning room, right to the right there, Tabby. I don't have a circle around it, but I was just gonna bring it up. No, the other way. In the morning room there. There you go, right there. That window right there on the back of the home. That says 3060, and then it says TEMP. That stands for tempered. Homes that are in glass that's in a home that is in any way of a door. So see that door next to it? If that door was off, could not stop, did not have a door stop on it, and could swing all the way, it could hit that window. By codes, all windows that are in that way have to be tempered glass. A little more expensive, but they have to be tempered. Yes, they do, absolutely.
Yeah. If
Because
they're
just
below
the
a certain height,
figure height.
the
Yes.
sill.
Yep. Now, I've noticed too, there's a new codes requirement. I don't know if you've noticed it with builders on your second floor windows, your bottom hash, right up on the second of the sash, there's a little lock. And it's a new codes requirement of a second floor window. When you open it up, will only open up about 8 inches, and it actually hits a lock. And you have to push the lock in to push the sash up. It's so a child can't hopefully get through a window. I have noticed that there's all supposed to be on the second floor, and it is very hard for the window installers to figure that out. And I'm seeing them on the first floor and not on the second floor. They're getting it. They're figuring it out. They're figuring it out. But yeah, they are for the second floor. It's a new codes requirement. And I have had one builder that had to replace it because the codes inspector called him out on it. He said, "Where's your window?" And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's down in the dining room." Well, that won't work. Let's go to number
We're going to talk about value construction in 7.
7. Yep, let's go to number 7. And this is something that, and again, nothing wrong with this. I think this is a great idea. Value engineering. If you look at this floor plan, see how it's straight across the back? And then the front of the home is where it kind of jugs in and out, in and out, in and out. What's the most important part of a home aesthetically that a person sees? The front. So a lot of builders now are going to engineered valued engineering, where they're asking their architects. That's one of the reasons I use this architect a lot. I've got 3 builder accounts literally referring him to this architect. He used to work for Husky Lumber. He is very conscious of lumber lengths. He knows that lumber comes in 16-foot lengths and it comes in this kind of length. And he literally draws his plans to use as less lumber as possible, taking into consideration lumber lengths. And one of the ways you can do that is go straight across the back. Every time you curve, it costs more lumber and more labor. They'll charge you to do it as well. And so you'll see a lot of builders over the years and a lot moving forward where you're going to see flat across the back. All the definition's going to be on the front. Absolutely, makes total sense. And I had a builder client 2 years ago. He presented me plans he wanted to build. I took his plans to my architect, and his profit margin went up 1.5%. Now I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but 1.5% in the building industry is huge. It's a big difference. And that the plans he presented were actually nicer. The builder actually liked them nicer. But what he did was he took all the lumber lengths into consideration and tried to change rooms to 16-foot rooms as best I could to, it's the waste. If I've got to take a piece of lumber and cut it off and it's the little piece of lumber left, you can
Well, the
throw it
real
out.
older homes, a lot of them are straight on all 4 walls.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's, yeah.
20s and 30s.
Well, that's because they didn't have the engineered lumber to span more spaces. They had to build them square like that.
My dad owned a lumber company.
Mhm.
My mother didn't get a house with corners, extra corners, except for 4, until they were in their 60s. Because of just what you said.
Right, yeah,
He said, no, we're not adding any corners.
No. This baby's gonna be round. All right, any questions on that make sense? Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you coming.
All right, let's go to number 8. We're gonna talk about door swings and door sizes. Again, just like your 3060, where that says 2-480. That means that's a 2-foot, 4-inch door, and it's 8 foot high. And you can go through this entire plan, and they'll all be like that. Where that comes into play is some clients that would like 36-inch doorways. I want my home wheelchair accessible later. And so if you have a client like that, if you can read a set of plans like this, you can actually sit here and walk them through the plan. And by looking at the plan, know, okay, yes, we can do this plan that way. I have plenty of room to get you from the garage all the way on the first floor through the kitchen to the living room with every doorway. I think we can expand those to 36-inch doors. I'm seeing a lot of that. It's a minimal expense. And if it's done up front, it's always there, and it's a good feature to sell to the next customer too. Because some millennials are not millennials, a lot of baby boomers are coming to condos age, and they want a door. Yeah.
And we've got pocket doors all over our house,
Yep. And they're probably wider.
and they're wider, and that's the architect just-
Oh man, that's an important one.
That's a master,
Man.
That's one of the most important.
That's an important one, man.
Missing in.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. You just go through sideways, don't you do? Let's go. Let's jump to number 9. Just want to talk a little about the fireplace. Not much to talk about there other than where that says 42 FP. That means it's a 42-inch firebox. So again, a way to look at quality of construction with a builder, there's a 36-inch firebox. And so a lot of people would say, I'm getting a fireplace. Great. But if you look at some really nicer homes, nicer builders, you'll see 42-inch fireboxes versus 36-inch firebox. So again, it's just another little tool that you can look at, and
There's a 36 in these big rooms that you have big spans. It's not scaled.
they'll get
properly.
lost.
So
Weird, it looks weird.
Yeah, they get lost. Just like a smaller window on a large drywall wall gets lost.
Steve, while we're here,
Yes, ma'am.
sunroom, can the sunroom be included in the square footage?
The
Say they
sunroom?
built this optional sunroom that's right there above that.
In this particular plan, yes, because it's heated and cooled.
Cool space. So, yep.
Okay.
Item number 10, that talks about that entranceway going in between there.
In the arches.
In the arches, yeah, a dotted line, just a straight set of dotted lines would be a cased opening. That means it's straight, no arch going into that room, no doorway. But where you see that those other dotted lines in that like little semicircle there, that means that that's arched. I am seeing the arches going away. I'm seeing bullnose corners go away. Bullnose corner is where you come to the drywall corner that used to be straight, and a lot of builders were doing them curved. A lot of builders call them California corners, bullnose corners. People are going for more straight lines now, which the builder is totally fine with because it's easier to do. But I'm seeing bullnose corners and archways going away. All right, any questions on any of that? What's that?
Yeah, it's
a matter of taste.
the farmhouse trend is so popular with straight lines, clean lines that unless it's specifically for a particular type of architecture, the arches can look dated. It can look like a early 2000s or that was very popular then.
Yeah. And the painters love it because they can paint straight lines a lot more than having to paint those curves. So painters have no problem with it at all. Item number 5, again, is talking about where we had different square footages. So I'm sorry, on the next page. This is the graph for elevation A. It talks about your square footages, elevation B, and elevation C. And as you can see, elevation B is 3741 square feet, and elevation C is 3755 square feet. Not a big difference in this plan, but there is actually a difference in the floor plan. And it is on the first floor.
In the foyer,
Yep, it's in the foyer.
you can see how the foyer
Yeah, see how the
front wall
foyer
jogs
butts
back
in?
in the upper one.
Where's that needs?
Oh, it's on the first floor.
It's a master bedroom hallway, I think.
Yeah, let's see.
there it is.
If you come in the 2-story foyer, just as you come through that first archway, it's right there to the right on that wall.
Pantry wall.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I see those going away as well.
yeah.
Okay, let's flip on to the second floor. Numbers 11. How long have we been going?
We're well into our time.
We're almost done, guys. I will speed it up.
I was gonna say, we're well into overtime. However,
I'm
it's such
sorry.
good information. We are just hanging on.
I will speed it on up. Number 11, those are tubs and showers. The number 11 on the left side over there, that's a tub unit. Number 11 on the right side over here, when it's got that X across it, that means it's a stand-up shower. I've had that tons of times as well, where customers did not understand that that was a stand-up shower, thought they were getting 2 tubs. Number 12, that little just colored box there, that is literally plywood in the attic where the mechanicals will be sitting. So there's a pull down, it's hard to see on there, but there's a pull down attic to go up, and that actually square, that lets you know that there's going to be plywood right there for the mechanicals to sit on to have access for removal and repair.
Yeah, the bottom right edge of that circle that's around that goes through where the pull down is.
Yeah.
So you can see it in the hallway there. So the ladder is going to empty out right on to that plywood at the top.
Right. I have a lot of people ask me what those are. Okay, let's move on to the basement floor plan. The 13, 14, and 15. A lot of times in basements, because they are not on the floor plan, they are specific to the lot, period. There are, in this particular plan, you've got a finished playroom, a finished media room, and those are going to be heated and cooled. You have a powder room that's going to be heated and cooled. The other spaces are they're identified by unfinished storage, mechanical space, and crawl space. Crawl space can commit to no ceiling height at all, just like a crawl space on a regular home that's not a basement. There's a definition on a minimum crawl space, but there is no definition on the height of one. So that crawl space, your customer should never expect to be able to use to finish out later, because that space is going to be a true crawl space, and I can't guarantee any height at all. Now the
Media room has no windows, you get credit for it, you plus
do what's that now?
media room has no windows, but the appraiser will give you value anyway because it's
Heated, because it's heated cool. Yes.
heated for length.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to make it a bedroom. Now the one that says unfinished storage in the top left hand, or yeah, unfinished storage, that will be at a true ceiling height. And most builders, just like to tell you, minimum 8 foot in the basement. Most builders like to do 9 foot and better in a basement, but 8 foot, what I've seen is the minimum square footage that they will do in a basement. If you've got a builder that's going to do minimum less than 8 in the basement, we'll probably have a conversation on that, because appraisal value on that would hit you down the line. As long as it's 8 or more, then they'll let you go with it. The mechanical space, that I wouldn't plan on being able to finish out as well, because that's where a lot of the mechanicals are going to be, furnaces and HVAC systems and stuff like that. So basically just want to let you guys know, just because it's on this box doesn't mean it's all going to be at the same ceiling height, and don't expect that you can finish all of it out. Where you at?
Below 14.
Oh, it's the garage slab, I think.
Where you at, buddy?
This one right here.
Oh, in the mechanical space?
That's just structural.
That's a structural thing with a column is what that is.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And that will have to be there. All right, let's move to item 16, 17, and 18, couple of pages up. Just a few electrical notes. 16, what I'm trying to demonstrate there is that it's a ceiling fan, but you see the sets of 2 dotted lines that goes back to where it's where the switch is. That means that there's a separate switch for the light, and there is at least a separate switch and block and pre-wire for the ceiling fan. Now, in this scenario, the ceiling fan's there, so that's what would be there. But a lot of builders would just put in a light fixture with a switch for the light, and then they will block and pre-wire for a later ceiling fan, but you will have the switch. So that's what those 2 dotted lines mean. Now, if you go over to, let's say, the dining room, move down to the dining room. See where there's just one dotted line from the middle over to those switches. That just means there's one switch on that wall over there, but there's 2 ways to turn the light on. So you can come in the dining room in 2 different ways and turn those switches on. 17 is an example of what we call a daisy chain in the industry. A lot of your electrical outlets and a lot of your fixtures are all on one wire, and it's one continuous wire. So that's just a term. It's called a daisy chain. If you hear that term, that means that more than one fixtures are on one wire and one switch.
Did you want to mention about how the location of the electrical outlets is not necessarily where they will be?
Yep. Number 18. Number 18, your electrical outlets on the bottom. This is a set of plans that are standard plans. All these plugs on here, the electrical plans, they're little circles with the lines down them, like number 18 down here. That is a standard per code set of electricals. So when you review a set of plans like this with your buyer, do not commit to that plug being in that exact location. What happens with an electrician is the code requirement is they come into a room and they can either go left or right. And about 3 feet from the doorway, they're supposed to put the first plug. Then they're supposed to go around the room every 6 feet and put a plug until they come back and circle back out of the room. So depending if they go left or right, it can throw off those things. Plus, if a wall is more than, I believe, 10 feet long, there has to be at least 2 plugs on it, which will restart the 6-foot measurement. So this is a per codes representation of how plugs could be in this home. So if your client needed additional plugs, they would have to either adjust these or pay for more plugs with the builder. I see. Yeah.
Would there be enough charge if my client took up? I'm used to walking in every room and my plug, I switch it charge? Or would that be-
With some
Depends on the
builders,
builder.
some builders, yes. One of my builder clients, we actually at frame walk the home and we actually talk about where do you want your switches for your light fixtures in this room. So it's just going to depend on the builder client. Yeah, but he's going to have so many in his bid with his electrician. If you go above that bid, he's going to pay more. So obviously he's going to pass the cost on to you, which is fair.
Let me throw this out for you. I know it sounds limited. Most builders I've worked with don't share it.
Not these. You won't, you never get a copy. You might get a copy of the electrical.
Yes.
The ones we looked at in the beginning, the front part of the series of plans are dimensional drawings and Dutch copyrighted material, so they won't give those out because you could theoretically build that house.
Right. Yeah, they normally will not. Yes.
I've seen such different plans.
Yeah.
You may get a plan, if you have a plan review with your clients, with the builder before they start construction, they will have one of those to go through, but you won't get to keep a copy of it.
Yeah. And a lot of it is, I mean, a lot of people think, well, they're trying to hide something from you. If a home is stick built, if it's not panelized, if it's totally built with just stacks of lumber and every single room is hand built on site, which in my opinion is probably the best way going to happen, where this room that's supposed to be 16.2 may end up being 16.1, and the room next door may pick up the other inch.
Well, it's good to-
And they don't want to be in those
for everybody
conversations
to
as well.
realize. More than likely, you're not gonna get a bunch of plans. So,
Right, you're gonna get you're gonna get an electrical set like we're looking at now that doesn't have dimensions in it. Mhm. Right? Yep. Yeah, they do not want us turning out plans. And up at the top corner here, you've got an electrical symbol ledger. That's just to kind of give you a ledger of kind of what all these symbols would be in here. Already went over 17. It's just a straight wire. I believe that is it. Now, Ian, I'm not going to go over these because we're kind of time limited, but we also put a set of cabinet drawings in the packet. A lot of builders will ask you to sign off on the cabinet drawings, you know, for your particular client. And again, they've got some terminology on them that's, you know, talks to you about the height of the cabinets and the width of the cabinets. There's a lot of three-dimensional things in here, good information to know and learn and review. I mean, you know, I've learned if I'm representing a buyer doing new home construction, I don't like the pass-through technique. The builder sends me the plans and I forward them to my buyer to review. I like to sit down with my buyer and review them myself because I want to be a little more knowledgeable about them and I want to be there to say, okay, yeah, let's look at our change orders and our contract to make sure that we got this number 12 hood vent, you know. So I am a little more involved in the clients, I guess, with stuff like that. I'm trying to be a pass-through agent. Any questions out there?
We should expect the buyer, the selling agent to listen, client, what's not, what's not. The fact that if they go into a standardized neighborhood where you're building 4, 5 floor plans, and that's it, but they all change with their elevation. The guys, y'all understand that when you go in and you put in XYZ super duper kitchen with all these fabulous appliances, if you're gonna be comp to the neighborhood average, so that when you go to resell in 8 years, you may have a $30,000 or $40,000 more valuable cost-wise kitchen that you put in, you ain't gonna get it out. Now,
Correct.
yeah, but with the new AI, very soon, there may be a way to value that kitchen if it's hot.
Right.
It's attractive. You're gonna put in all wool and all these other appliances, it'd be nice to get credit for it, but don't expect.
Right.
I think initially, we might be going away from everybody just owning those quickly.
It's gone away.
Yeah, it's already out.
I can tell you that when Steve and I started,
No conversation about it.
99, the early 2000s, people would come into your sales center and complain about your dollar per square foot. They would just be a conversation. I'm not paying more than $100. That has gone out the window.
It's no conversation.
Really 7 to 10 years ago, it stopped being a matter of conversation. Right. No, and a lot, like Atlanta, for instance, they don't do that. They don't do square footage. It's bedrooms and bathrooms. That whole market is gone away from the square footage being an important thing. And, you know, it's, well, it's the difference between an inexpensive domestic car versus a same size German car. You know, you get different stuff in each, they're the same size, but you got different stuff in there. So,
And the clientele has changed too. A lot of baby boomers and plus, they don't want a large home. They want a smaller home with a lot of quality in it. And they'll pay twice the money for it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that conversation's just, that conversation's gone away. I can't remember the last time I talked about dollars per square foot to the truth.
hadn't come up very often. I can't remember either.
Steve? Oh.
Thank
Steve
you.
and Josh, we just want to say thank you so much for today. So much information. I've already had a couple of requests for your session 2 information around how to start with the raw land and get those, that plat worked out, and what that looks like. So we look forward to hearing more on that and then more on the ins and outs of the new construction world. So,
Okay. Yeah. And we've got, Tabby, can you do us a favor? Can you send an email out asking for requests on what they would like new construction classes on? Because we've got a format we want to teach, but I want to teach what people want. So if you can get some information on what, you know, the agents are looking for, then we'll tailor the classes to that.
yes, for sure. And so the first request is on this whole raw land and.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Everybody said very informative, very helpful, and we look forward to having you guys back and teaching us more about all the little ins and outs of these plans, because it was it's a lot to learn and a lot to go through.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
we're available. I mean, we're in the office.
Thank you.
If anybody's got any questions, please just come ask us. Any of your home construction questions. If you're in a contract and you just need a question, come ask us. We'd be glad to help out.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you all.
I really
Thank you.
Glad to. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.